Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 280. As always, to give people time to join the stream, I am going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wall. Your new God's sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly, bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall wail gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give what wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music, go and check out his channel on YouTube. And you can also follow him on X on Twitter, where we are also live at the moment. People in the audience, could I just say to you guys, please like the stream. It really does help the YouTube algorithm. And also, you will see pinned at the bottom of the chat, if you would like to support the channel, and 6 of you do at the moment, for a whole $5 a month, you can support the channel. And also on Subscribe Star, you will find all of our videos, pretty much. I don't know if everyone will have seen, but in the middle of last week, I did a video called, a stream called the Southern Muster, and this was an Australian stream. Had some extremely good guests, including Marcus Furious, who many of you will know, and a couple of other good guys. And we may be doing that about once a month in the future. But I wanted to do something that was Australian based for a while since I live in Australia. But yeah, check that out if you haven't already seen it, guys.
Talking about the, because you were saying about the mines, people in the mines in Australia, in relation to that stream. And I was saying about it being similar to oil rigs, I suppose. Here in the UK, we have this problem where if you're like,
you cut out, mate. Adam. Yeah, you cut out, and then I heard you say this mic. Bum, 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 bum. Mitch, how you going, mate? While Atman's sorting his microphone.
I haven't really been paying attention to anything political. I've just been, I don't know, I've been looking up the Odyssey with how crap it is, looking up House of a Dragon, how crap that is, and I've been looking at Rings of Power and how crap that is. So, yeah.
The only hopefully Atman can sort his internet out. You might, Adam, and sometimes what works for me when mine goes wrong is just go out the stream and come back in again. That often resets it. Yeah, if you want to look for some modern shows, Mitch, the only ones I have watched with any enjoyment recently, I watched Mobland, which was pretty good, which is a British series with Tom Hardy. It's pretty diverse because it's a modern British series. So, you know, which I'd prefer it not to be, but I mean, you know, it's not unrealistic in modern Britain. The other one I watched was The Gentleman, which is another British series, which is about some tough British Army officer, Duke, who gets involved with some drug dealer chick, but only marijuana, nothing more serious than that. And that's not bad. And then I watched Landman, which is about some Texas oil dude.
I watched season 1, and I quite liked it. I love Billy Bob Thornton. I think he was good in that.
Yeah, I mainly like Billy Bob Thornton's wife in Landman, to be honest, the blonde MILF chick. Very, very cute indeed. But yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how they write the daughter, because she'll refer to the main character as daddy, and I'm thinking to myself, it's just weird hearing, because it's not like what it was, like, say, before I was born. Nowadays, in my time, nowadays, when a girl says daddy, you're not thinking innocent stuff anymore. You're thinking of,
well, they used to. They certainly used to say that.
Yeah, but
to their real dads. You know?
Yeah, but it doesn't happen like that anymore for my generation. So, but for older generations, it's different, isn't it? So,
yeah. Well, I mean, what do they call their father?
Which is a dad.
Well, yeah, I suppose, but it tends to be. I think even when I was a youngster, yes, mostly they would say dad. Although what you'd get is girls would say daddy to their actual father when they were trying to get something out of him, like they wanted some extra money or to use the car or something like that, you know. But also, it's a middle class thing that girls tend to say daddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you have. It's like the thing is, a lot of it's just ruined by women who, let's say, women who don't have a father growing up, and will just refer to any authoritative bloke, mainly like, you know, you get women who talk about men as in men or like the guys, like, you know, the fuck boys, whatever word they want to use, talking about when they're talking about the men they hate, and it's just like it's just they use like we're done in such a very weird way because basically a lot of their dating preferences are screwed up by the fact they don't have a father growing up, and also because of the way the dating market is. I don't know how best to put it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I can believe it, mate. I can believe it. I mean, you got to understand. I haven't dated a girl under the age of about 35 for quite a long time. So you know.
Yeah, yeah. And another time, people would say you're missing it, but you're not missing it when it comes to my generation because, I mean, previous watch.
Well, I was going to suggest to Aubrey, who's sometimes a guest on here, our American lady, that she'd probably like Landman because the daughter in that is a cheerleader, and Aubrey used to be a cheerleader when she was that sort of age. So
yeah,
she'd probably like that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think now. So in terms of most TV these days, a lot of it's just crap. Like screenwriting is just crap these days. Like you take House of a Dragon. Right?
Oh, I can't watch most of it, Mitch. I really can't. Like House of the Dragon, I watched a few episodes of. I think it was the first season of that, but I only watched a few episodes of it.
Yeah. So with that, you got a guy called Kristen Cole, who he's meant to be like basically the story's version of Achilles. He's going to be a great warrior and all this. But the way they've written him, they've basically written him like an insult, basically. Like, oh yeah, he's only on one side because he hates the other team's woman because she rejected him, and that's the only reason he's doing anything. Whereas in the book, it's based on his character's far more fleshed out as being like this great warrior. You know, sure. I mean, he will disrespect his vow and sleep with women, but he didn't define himself by hating a woman. Like he'll define himself by the fact that he's really good in combat, and you know. And the screenwriters have just focused on, well, this guy is basically an insult, and that's the way they've written him, and it's just so damn annoying how they've written him in the show compared to the book. Or the Valarians, who are all black, and it just ruins the storyline because the whole thing is the main female character, she's sleeping with her bodyguard, and with having black guys in the Valarian family, it screws up the adultery storyline because in the original book, it's meant to be, you can kind of tell, but not really, because, you know, everyone's white. And you only can really tell by hair color. Whereas if you have a white woman who has pure white children when she's married to a black guy, people are going to naturally start asking questions. Everyone can see for themselves.
Yes.
It just ruins that storyline. That's a bedrock of the whole thing.
Yes, it would be a bit strange. It has to be said.
Yeah,
but so yeah, I agree with you, Mitch. I think modern screenwriting is terrible, and it's a lot of it is terrible is because they got rid of good, experienced screenwriters who were white men, basically.
I will say there was one white woman.
They don't want good, experienced screenwriters. They want diverse screenwriters, and diversity doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily related to talent at all, of course. So.
Yeah, and the thing about in the case of I know The Last of Us, the original game, it was written by a white woman, and she was very skilled, like you know, and basically Neil Druckmann, who's this Jewish feminist guy, he turfed her out because she refused to shit on men with all the Me Too stuff. And she refused to denounce men because she said, well, men gave me the opportunity to be a good writer for a really well-known game franchise. Because she refused to tell the feminist line, she got turfed out. And then so we just had to be subjected to Neil Druckmann and those types dominating a lot of game writing. And that's why the games also...
Well, I mean, look at the chick who writes Harry Potter. You know, many on the left detest her because she's a TERF.
She's a weird one because, the world she's built, it's like Edwardian England, but it has the same social values as like 1990s California. It's a really weird one. Like it's like she's trying to have her cake and eat it. And
now listen, I'm not a fan. I've never read Harry Potter. I've seen the movies. but I've certainly never read the books because I've always considered them to be children's books. So
Yeah, I usually read 100 to 200 pages a day. With Harry Potter, I can easily read at least 500 pages a day because it's just so easy to read. It's just
I do understand they're race swapping some of the characters for the new series that's coming up, but
yeah,
what a surprise,
yeah. Basically, all the shit libs, they're still bitter about J.K. Rowling, so they're bringing in a new Harry Potter series to just de-J.K. Rowling it, and it's yeah.
What gets me though is that you will never see a series set in Africa or India or anywhere else where a white character takes over from a black character or an Indian character. That will never happen.
Well, to be fair, you've got that. What was it called? That TV show that released last year, where it's basically a white guy stabs a black girl. That's race swapping from a black guy into a white guy because
yeah, of course,
yeah,
because
I can't remember what it's called now, but it was gay up to all over the place last year, wasn't it? And it was
most white guys don't stab anybody, let alone black girls. But whatever.
Yeah, not as for Wood Pit
Yeah,
7, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I will say that's a really good TV series.
Yeah, it was all right. I watched that. I didn't hate it. I must say, I thought it was okay. Adamant, sorry, you're back, mate. You were asking something about Australian mines, I believe, before you got cut off.
Well, just quickly, I mean, the show you're talking about is Adolescence you're thinking of.
Ah, yeah, that was it. Yeah, I forgot the name.
I mean, the funny thing with that, just quickly, is that they do, like, there are cases, like, funny enough, not long after that show came out, there was actually a case from, like, rural Norfolk of a white boy stabbing a girl that he was in school with. But, I mean, that was a weird one because they said in the interview specifically, oh, it's based on these 3 cases. And then when people looked, all of those cases involved, like, non-white kids. And then they tried to walk it back and be like, no, it's not based on any cases. You're making that up. Like, and we're like essentially trying to gaslight everyone. It's very weird. But yeah, like what I was going to say about the mines was in the UK, we have this problem where if you're trying to sell like a motorcycle or a car on eBay, you'll get all these people messaging you and they're like, oh, I work on an oil rig, so I can't come and view it. But if I get a friend to show up with a check, can I have it? And it's like a scam, right? Do you get the same thing with the mine profession out there where people like pretend to be miners so that they can try and like
possibly
do, like,
I haven't sold anything recently, but also don't forget, most of those mines, not all of them, but most of them in Australia tend to be in Western Australia. And I'm on the east coast of Australia, and so you got to imagine it would be like if you're in I don't know, if I was in say Atlanta and someone wanted to buy something off me who was based over in LA, it's that sort of distance. So it wouldn't really affect me very much because no one's going to travel that far.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I'm in the far southeast, but they would still do it here. They'd message me and be like, "Oh, I work on an oil rig in the North Sea, but I want to buy your motorcycle. I'll get this random dingus to show up with a check, and we'll take it away." And then, of course, the check bounces.
But even if they're coming from the North Sea, I mean, you're still talking probably not even half the distance.
Yeah, but the person's not coming from the North Sea. They're just some scammer. It's probably some Pakistani in Birmingham, and
well, that would be your other thing that you would look at. The majority of the guys who are doing the actual mine work in Australia are white blokes, surprisingly enough.
Well, I'm sure it's the same on the oil rigs here. To be honest, I'm sure they're
exactly.
Those places are going to look like a Scottish village in like the 1920s, based on demographics.
Yep, very much so. Very much so. Good AAI. How are you going, mate?
I'm all right. It's been a pretty interesting week. Today in my local town, there was a massive. You had demos. There was and counter demos. So that like the some patriots. I don't know if it was like Tommy Robinson's lot or something. There was some march going on there, and then you had the Stand Up to Racism and the
Oh
Socialist
gosh.
Workers Party, um, and various like charity cafe NGOs, NHS, local council staff, all through the unions out demonstrating. A lot of white boomers. Sorry, offend to white boomers out there who are offended by it, but yeah,
Foolish, bad white boomers. Anyway, foolish, bad white
I
boomers.
I know I was didn't engage with any of them, so I just avoided them lots, and but to be absolutely honest, I I did have to hold my tongue a bit because I just wanted to just like yell "Day of the Pillow" at them.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you
Yes,
know what I
I
mean.
know what you mean.
But I thought no, I mean no fed. The first rule of being an online right wing figure is you don't be an edgelord in real life because it doesn't work. Um, doesn't work. But no, to be honest, I was listening to a bit before, and um, you were talking about like the state of like media. I can't watch. I don't think I can't remember what last time I watched anything, a a film or TV show that was made in the last 2 decades. If I watch anything on television, it's usually like an old film. I was watching I tell you what, I was watching the other day. I was the Ip one what's
Yipcref
that
trial?
yeah, the Harry
Yipcref trial?
Palmer, yeah, the Harry
Yes,
Palmer
yes.
ones, yeah,
Yeah.
and the Funeral in Berlin. That's a good one.
Yeah, I've seen all those with Michael Caine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Very,
quite good.
very much written as the anti-James Bond.
Yeah, yeah, and
No,
but he,
I basically do the same as that AI. Although, as I was saying to Mitch while I'm sorting his microphone, I have watched a few modern things over the last couple of weeks, and they weren't bad, to be honest. But they were very selectively. They were carefully selected. Let's put it that way.
yeah. I mean, the one thing I want to like, but I can't because it's just the quality wise is there's a chap who made documentaries on like the Crusades, and he actually worked, to be fair, really hard with um um actors and everything. He made together like a TV show about the Third Crusade from like Richard the Lionheart's point of view, and as a concept wise, excellent. You know, screenwriting, everything. But the problem is because no studio was ever going to touch it, and because he relied on crowdfunding, he had to use CGI, even a bit of AI as well to procedurally generate armies and people and stuff like that. And
Is that the guy from the YouTube channel, Real
yeah, it's
Crusades History?
real Crusade history.
Yeah,
And
I like him. Yeah,
I
I
like
follow
him.
that.
He's got a few good. His novels are really good. He's got very good books. He's got a lot of and I think the trouble with the TV show though is if it had like like I guess like an Elon Musk or some sort of backer to with with the right sort of
He was gonna do that series with some American Christian channel, but I presume that must have fallen through because that was his original plan. Like
yeah.
you
Well,
know these American Christian studios, they make some not bad films sometimes.
yeah, the one that made the King David TV show also was the one that made the Young Washington one.
Yeah.
And the problem, and I don't want to like be bashing American conservatives. I've only joined in the last few minutes, but unfortunately, and they suffer the same problem with the Daily Wire. I mean, the Daily Wire is the worst one, so maybe it's a bit harsh to compare them. But there is a conceptual problem where a lot of them, because they like to, be base coded, like to actually show their conservatism, it just it does lack a level of creativity, and that is a problem. I think you can, the what was it? There was like an Arthurian legend one that the Daily Wire that they've been doing, like a King Arthur one, and there's nothing. I mean, there's no like race swapping or anything like that, but conceptually, it's actually terrible. It's terrible because they go out of their way to appear to be like American conservatives with conservative talking points.
Yeah.
And
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Someone in the chat mentioned Risen earlier. I think that's also from one of these studios. Although I've never seen the whole film, but I've seen there's not a bad battle scene in it when the Roman legionaries have to storm some of these revolting Jewish guys, and do, of course, because they did. And that's all right, but I've not seen the whole movie.
Yeah, one scene I saw from a film was one film with Ralph Fiennes where he plays Odysseus, and it's a film called The Return, which only focuses.
Yeah, I watched that. I watched it. It's very diverse. I mean, it's probably more diverse than Nolan's movie. That's what I didn't like about it. It's quite well done, but it is very diverse. I just find it jarring when you're supposed to be in Bronze Age Greece, and there's all these Bantu Africans around and Indians and people who just simply wouldn't have been there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's sort of jarring is I'm seeing on Twitter, like there's an Indian guy in the Odyssey film, and there's people trying to claim that Greeks look like Indians. And
yeah, well, not any Greek I've ever seen looks like Indians, but
they look like Mediterraneans because they're in the Mediterranean.
Yes,
they don't.
Exactly.
They're not Indian.
I tell you what, if you were to get certain Lebanese people, they could certainly play Greeks, because some Lebanese people are very white. Same thing with some Iranians. It has to be said.
And also, the Greeks won't like to hear this, but a lot of Turks, particularly Turks living in Western Turkey, would pass as Greek because ancestrally they are Greek. They are Greek. And that's something that there's actually a film. I think it's from the 70s. It's ancient Greek. It's called Ignicia. I'll send a link. But you see in that, I mean, I hate. There is a bit of low level of homosexuality, but when you watch Greek films, you just have to expect that sort of stuff. So don't get too freaked out about it. But you see how the Greeks are in. I mean, they look very distinctively Greek. I guess you could say. There is also like you have Greek and then you have Hellenic, and one thing I've noticed is a lot of the biggest Nolan apologists out there is they confuse the concept of like Hellenized Anatolians, Syrians, and the legacy, the successor states to Alexander's empire, which you had like this, you had the Greeks, Hellenic Greeks, and then you had various subcategories of Greek, like Cappadocians and Pontic and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And there's this deliberate, where actually Greek is like a catch-all term. So you had like black Greeks, and they think, well, no, you didn't.
I mean, they're not confusing that; they just don't even know those distinctions exist.
No, of course they don't know. Their knowledge of history is just too limited to understand.
And you have you had, like, I saw Tom Holland, who sat down with the actor Tom Holland, who's in Odyssey, who's also Spider-Man or something like that. But Tom Holland, the historian as well, because they have like I guess it's like a gimmick thing because of their names, same names. Tom Holland, the historian.
Tom Holland, the historian, is a shit lib, But yes,
Yeah. Because I mean, he knows full well, and he knows full well that the Greeks, particularly Greeks who live in, the Greek city-states, would not even view themselves equal to a Hellenized Anatolian or Cappadocian or
well, they didn't like the
Coptic Egyptian.
Macedonians.
No,
They
no,
used to
no.
say the Macedonians weren't Greek. So
Yeah, but and so and it's the same would apply with a Romanized Briton, a Romanized Gallic, or a Romanized Iberian. The Romans of Central Latium, they didn't view themselves. I mean, they viewed themselves superior. I mean, and they had a right to because
yes,
it's Rome, but
yes.
they did not view them as equal. Absolutely not. And even
No,
within
no.
Italy,
Look when Caesar tried to bring in senators from parts of Gaul. The Romans hated it.
well, they brought in senators from northern Italy, like around Milan,
Yeah,
and even
they
then,
didn't even like that much. No, absolutely.
no, they view,
It's
you
like
you had
is
some.
it Varenus from Rome? Who was everyone kept calling was it like a ginger bastard or something like that because he happened to have some Cisalpine Gaul in him, and that's like first century. That's the last century BC. So yeah, was
Yeah,
like
yeah, you had this attitude that there was this in some cases, who was, I think it was Gibbon, who actually did say that there was this um within the Roman elites within the city of Rome, even Italians living in like just a few miles south or north of them, or they're not even our equal. They're not even real Romans. We are the real Romans because we're part of that Roman elite. And um, there is an element of truth that you even go into the Middle Ages where you have the Procuriae and the College of Cardinals with the church. A lot of those families that were had this permanent body of cardinals, like the Orsini, they would claim ancestry back to the ancient Roman Republic. A lot of them would. The Sforza, they all would, because they would say, well, we're true Romans, and that is just how it works. Because when you have these imperial societies, of course they're going to be elitist and view everyone as inferior. I mean, of course that's the case, but you have like this ridiculous attitude by Nolan and his cohort of moronic liberals that, Greeks, like kumbaya. I mean, how can you look at Greek mythology and have this attitude of like catch-all,
Well,
sort of low-level equality?
AI, he couldn't look at Greek mythology, which is why basically his movie ignores the gods.
Yeah.
I mean, even Athena, who is one of my least favorite actresses in that movie, and not
Zendaya. Yeah.
yes, I can't stand her. I don't think she can act, even, to be honest with you. And she's certainly not attractive. But even her in that film, from everything I've heard, because I'm certainly not going to watch it, I've got no intention of watching that movie. But from what people tell me, it's perfectly possible that she's meant to be a figment of the chap's imagination rather than an actual goddess. There are no other gods in the whole film. And of course, if you read the Odyssey, the gods are extremely important in it.
Yeah.
So he imagines Athena. By that logic, he conceives of Athena as a black woman, the founder of Athens, wisdom as this black woman. Oh, that makes total sense. That makes total sense.
Yeah, of course, he wouldn't imagine Athena as the ancient Greeks imagined Athena.
The funny thing is, it's like I know, like Gladiator, they did a bit of diversity casting, which was weird, with that black guy playing a Numidian, because for reference, Numidians are Berbers, and the Berbers, if you ever seen them, I mean, if you ever seen that footballer Zinedine Zidane, if I'm pronouncing that name right, I mean, he's nowhere near sub-Saharan. If that's what a Berber looks like. and you ever cast a black guy as that in Gladiator. But what's
Mm.
more, and that's the Berbers who were regarded as barbarians by the Greeks. So
and bear something in mind, Mitch. When you look at the Berbers today, they will be darker than the Berbers were in the ancient world, because in the ancient world, the Arabs hadn't conquered the whole damn place yet.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I'll share. I'll probably just share screen just to nail home my point.
If you go to Duke, if you go to parts of Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, you've got the what they call themselves, the is it the Armazays, who actually there's like this revival of, and you could say it's like some sort of like pure blood nationalism, but you got like these the population there who say we're not Arab, and try and to be fair, there I've seen like photographs of quite rural parts where there was one guy who was effectively, he was Caucasian. He was like, I mean, he was a bit tanned, but he white, and he had red hair, and I was like, So that, and it's quite an isolated part of Morocco. So it does go to show that in that regard, I mean, that's quite an interesting admixture. Probably, maybe Celt, maybe there's some like Iberian crossover. I don't know, but due to their proximity. But going back,
I know, just to answer Frankie HAR in the chat, I know that you can find amongst the Afghans and the Pathans, you could, the Pushtu people, you can certainly find people with blue eyes, and that is a legacy of Alexander the Great, apparently.
I think the tribes called something like Kadash or Kalash or something like that. I can't remember the name fully, but it starts with a K. I know that.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's the local legend, isn't it? That's sort of like the legend that it was fragments of, because you had that Bactrian kingdom in Afghanistan, right, after Alexander's death, and it was cut off from the Greek road by the Parthians, and it's believed that the Bactrian kingdom in Afghanistan probably limped on for maybe 100 years at most, but because there was such a high Greek population that, in some regards, there was like this syncretic belief between what would have been Hinduism, Buddhism, and the Greek pantheon there, and also the Greek population quite isolated. I do think you can't disregard, because I remember there was one village in Afghanistan, like in the Hindu Kush, where or there was this one like valley where people living there still followed some pre Islamic religion. They were still following effectively like a pagan religion, and that's how isolated.
Well, they were Buddhists for a while up there.
Well, it wasn't even, but it wasn't
yeah.
even Buddhism. It was some like very strange, because that's how isolated. I mean, yeah, you did have Buddhism in parts of Afghanistan, but it's such an isolating place. It was like I think it was something similar to like what you get like with Tengrilism or the Siberian, like an animist religion. And
Sure.
Yeah, I know in Afghanistan as well, they've still got like a Mongolian speaking minority that's still been there since the days of Genghis Khan. Like, since when Genghis Khan destroyed the Khwarezmian Empire, there's still that Mongolian minority there. And I think their name is something like Tumen, which just comes from a Mongolian word for 10,000, because basically what happened was a lot of Mongolians settled there. They happened to be part of a military unit, and they just, basically raped the local women, and the local women bore Mongolian children, and they've been there since the Middle Ages. So Afghanistan's a weird one.
Fascinating as I find history. I don't want to turn this into a history stream, but yeah, I mean it's a fact that even after Alexander, the Seleucids still controlled Afghanistan and even bits of northern India for a while. The Seleucids withdrew eventually, and as part of the agreement, were given a load of Indian war elephants. I know that much. But yeah, history is something I can happily talk about for hours, as anyone who knows me knows. But we try and keep this as a current affairs and news stream. We've kind of wandered there from talking about modern media, I guess.
To be fair, Jude, current affairs in Britain at the moment are really depressing. So it's kind of
I don't disagree. I
have got a bit of a hot take on what I've been mulling this over, and I have got a bit of a hot take on what because I haven't really talked about it. Andy Burnham and how his premiership, you could say, or this bizarre this sort of like what they call as like coronation, why it happened, why it happened.
Prime Minister with no election. Eh? Nice work if you can get it.
So and this is just my brief take on this, and everyone's can disagree on this. It appears, and I think it's safe to say, I don't know if we all agree, the system, when I mean the system, I'm not just talking about the Labour Party, but the wider British state wanted Andy Burnham to become Prime Minister. It was very much pushed unashamedly. It was just pushed. And it also appears that a lot of Labour voices who were supporting the Green Party, who were very pro-Palestine in the Israel-Palestine conflict, and turned on Keir Starmer, I've also noted, like them at Navarro Media, even Owen Jones and Down have somewhat returned to the Labour Party reservation. Now, this has all happened at the same time that what was the significant thing that Burnham has done in international policy? He has agreed to the United States demand for opening up RAF Fairford and other bases as well, most likely Akateria, Decatur, and Cyprus, to launch strikes on Iran. Now, this is something that, if you remember, if you cast your back when this was first proposed under, Starmer. Now, Starmer refused. He refused to get involved. And this caused anger from quite an interesting mix of sides. Of course, you had the anti-Zionist side, from the right and the left, but and Reform had their own moments. But if you remember, with the Labour Party, you had Palestine Action, and you had these very pro-Palestine members who were demonstrating and saying, "Oh no, he's going to allow them in. He's going to allow the Americans in, and we're going to be complicit in a genocide." And then, of course, you had the pro-Israel lobby saying that he's not helping, he's an anti-Semite. So he got accused of being both at the same time. And what's happened now is Burnham's effectively given America everything in regards to their campaigns in Iran. And where is the pro-Palestine crowd now? There's no visible sign of them.
Well, I'd just point one thing out, AI, about this, is that if you look what the Iranians have done to assorted American military bases in the Middle East, they basically made the Americans evacuate several of them and not use others, because they just can't base large numbers of troops or planes or anything there, because the Americans cannot defend them against the Iranian missiles and drones. Now, you I know, remember that at the start of this war, the Iranians sent a couple of drones against the British Crown bases in Cyprus, and there was no defense there whatsoever. And apparently there is now a ground-based missile battery, and they had to rush a destroyer out there. But I think that Starmer, just because he'd been in the job long enough, would have been sensible enough to realize that if the Iranians are pissed with the British letting the Americans do this, we have no defenses against these missiles and drones, really.
No. And also there is this other thing that within the Iranian population, within the Iranian psyche, and this is not just like the Islamic revolutionaries, this the Shah and his supporters back in the day held this, they were quite anti-British because, of course, there you had the British-backed regime change in the 40s and the during the war.
The Anglo-Iranian Oil
Yeah,
Company and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
the predecessor to BP, and you had all that. So there is this like strain of, I mean, there is like a form of like British conspiracy tardism within in the Iranian psyche, in the Iranian population. But look, I mean, my point of raising this is all the people who really went after Starmer for not getting involved in and then or getting too involved or what have you. All of those problems that he faced is not a thing now. And I'm going to be honest here, and this is just me being. I didn't really talk about the Palestine demos and all that sort of stuff because there wasn't really much to talk about in the sense of they just go on the street and they go around London and they make a noise and what have you. But I couldn't help that the people organising those demos happen to be from a certain country in the Middle East. Now, granted, they present themselves as like anti-Zionist, but they're still, you know what I mean.
So you mean some of them, AI, not all of them, but some of them. You mean?
The Socialist Workers Party,
but they are still doing like pro-Palestine rallies.
Yeah. I mean, they are. They're still doing it, but the actual like attention, the media attention to this, has been largely minimal. If this happened
for what it's
ago,
worth, AI, I don't think the Americans are going to win this war anyway. To be honest.
Well, no, I feel
if the Americans were able to win the war, they would have won it by now. And any bombing they can do, for example, they would have already done. And I very much hope, for the sake of the American troops, not for their politicians, but I hope for the sake of their troops that they don't try and invade an Iranian island or something like that, because I think it's very liable to turn into a disaster if they do. And the further Britain stays away from that, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
I sure don't want British servicemen killed in such a stupid war.
Well, we just, I mean, truth being told, I was watching a video a few days ago looking at if say Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, could we defend it? Now, actually looking at it, from the way the chap, I think it was Mark Felton who presented it, looking at it on the even-handed basis, it's touch and go. There's no guarantee we could.
If we got even 36 hours warning, I think yes, we could.
I think
because we can fly troops there now, and we can also fly fighter bombers out there now because of the airfield. The only way the Argentinians can win is they would have to knock out the airfield so we can't land reinforcements and capture it. And that would not be as easy as people think. There's a flight of Typhoons down there, Typhoon fighter bombers, which are at least, well, they're better than anything the Argentines have got at the moment.
Yeah,
true. But there's only 4 of them. But they are better than anything the Argentines have got. The Typhoons are pretty good 4th gen jet.
Yeah.
And there is a much bigger garrison. Like there's a reinforced infantry company plus quite a lot of other soldiers, sailors, and RAF guys, and what have you. So the Argentinians would need a very substantial force to actually take the airfield. Like, there's probably 250 British military people there, maybe a bit more than that even. So the Argentinians are going to need to land 1,000 men on the island. And given the state of their Navy and Air Force at the moment, they would find that very difficult.
It would be very.
I mean,
it would be very difficult.
I mean, one could try and sing about 10 RG bombers in the air, but I've barely got 9 that are barely functional. So I
They've
just
got
don't see.
no submarines.
They're getting F-16s. They're getting more F-16s. I think they've got about 6 at the moment, but they're getting more. But the F-16 of the type that they're getting, they're not as advanced as the Typhoon, and they have less good missiles. They are also going to get some submarines, but they haven't got them yet. So, you know.
Yeah,
And
I've seen these sort of. Oh, sorry. You go.
I was just going to say the ships that they got. I think what was it? One of the corvettes or something like that. It's like they've had a few problems. Andrew, one's been like in permanent maintenance, so even like any troop, even I don't even know how it can be even deployed for even a long term use, because apparently it's been like docked with multiple problems. I mean, Britain's been having the same problem as well. So, but again, yeah, they wouldn't. I mean, I think what's safe to say is they wouldn't have air superiority in any real scenario. I don't think, unless they knock out the Air Force base. But then again,
Yeah,
you've got
you've got to knock out the airfield. Although, of course, that would be dodgy from the Argentinians' point of view, because they would want to use that airfield to resupply their own forces if they captured the place. And as I said, in order to actually capture the base there, they're going to have to land at least 1,000 men and probably 2,000, because I doubt very much if the Argentinian army is any better now than it was in 1982. And I think they would find it very, very difficult to actually land 2,000 men on the island, even if they used every transport aircraft and ship that they had available. I think they'd struggle to do that. And then, of course, that's if the Typhoons don't sink some of them or shoot some of them down on the way there, which presumably they would.
Yeah. And so yeah, but going back to, I mean, that's the point. Like, I think when it comes to even it would have to be an invasion of Iran. Is not even on the cards, because I don't think even America or us could do it, because an amphibious landing.
Listen, I was listening to Bo, History Bro, who I like, by the way. I often watch his breakfast show. But Bo was of the opinion a few days ago that, somehow the Americans have got armored divisions and all sorts of things that they can use against Iran, and they haven't. The forces the Americans have available are a marine amphibious group and an airborne division, and that's it. That's all they've got. They're light troops.
It would be another Bay Pigs. It'd be another Bay of Pigs. Humiliation. If they tried, they would land, and I doubt they'd get very far off the beachhead, because it's all fortified.
It's 110 degrees in that part of the world at the moment, and there's no water on most of these islands that the Americans are talking about invading. And you need probably 8 pints of water a day per soldier. How do you land that stuff? You can't do it with ships because they'll get sunk or damaged at least. So you can only do it with helicopters and stuff. And also at the same time, you're supposed to be bringing in ammunition. You got to bring in food. You got to take out casualties. I think it's a disaster if they even try it. And the only reason the Americans may try it is because they don't know what the hell else they can do. Because, anything they could bomb easily, they've already bombed. And it hasn't made any difference.
I think they actually held this, and going back to the start of this, the actual start of the American campaign, in which they killed the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, and various senior military figures. That I think they honestly thought that there would be some force within the Iranian military or reformist group
Oh yeah,
that
they
would
thought
would
they thought the Iranian public would rise up against the government, and they're
yeah.
obviously not going to. I
Well,
mean,
no,
that's plain.
it did the opposite. It actually united the country. It united the country.
Strange to say that often happens when you bomb people, but yes.
Well, going back to the Falklands, when the Argentines invaded the Falklands, and Maggie sent the task force down there, and then of course we won. It did unite the country. I mean, it should, people were united. There was very patriotic spirit, and of course, it worked out very well for Margaret Thatcher politically, because that's what happens.
There is this vital difference between 1981, 1982, and 2026. In 1982, the Royal Navy had about 70 frigates and destroyers, 77-0. These days, we have 11.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll just get go down to the Falkland Islands with a rowboat and shove some TNT on it, and set it off in the Argentine direction.
Listen, the Royal Navy, also the Royal Marines, for example, they took both their amphibious assault ships down to the Falklands in 1982, as well as all the 5 or 6 Royal Fleet Auxiliary amphibs. These days, the Royal Marines have no ship even that could go down and do that job. There's no Royal Navy ship anymore that carries landing craft and stuff, because they just sold them like last year. The Brazilians have bought one, I think, and the other one's going to be used for spares for the Brazilians. It's the Royal Navy has been almost destroyed by the British government.
Yeah, true.
We've got 6 SSN hunter-killer submarines, with another one being built, and not one of them is operational at the moment, because we don't need 6, we need 12. So when they're working, they get worked to death, and then they have to spend months alongside having refits and repairs. But it's the Royal Navy is a disaster zone at the moment. But the British Army's no better. The RAF's no better, really. To be honest,
Yeah,
it really isn't.
One thing noticeable on Twitter is like you see these sort of pro-Israel American conservatives. I think what's his name, Mark Zell or Richard Zell, something like that. And he's one of these like boomer conservatives whose main thing is we got to be pro-Israel, and he's going about how America's future is Argentina, apparently, because Javier Milei happened to say all the right things at the moment. All of a sudden, America needs to get rid of our alliance with Britain and ally with Argentina, as well as Latin America altogether.
Well, this is another consequence, of course, of hollowing out your armed forces. There was a time, I mean, in 1982, Maggie Thatcher could say to Ronald Reagan, "Who's your most important ally?" And she did. And the fact of the matter was, in 1982, Britain was easily the most important ally to the Americans in terms of being able to do stuff around the world, because the Europeans have never really been able to do that, except the French a little bit. But the British could, and we were the only people who could. And, when the Americans got involved in Gulf War I and Gulf War II and Afghanistan,
the War on Terror.
Yeah, Britain was the only country that really joined in with any great enthusiasm.
But back with Reagan though, Duke, the reason why, I mean, you did have like 1 or 2 detractors who were like of Irish descent because they just had to be fuckheads about it. But on the whole, yeah, you had the Anglo-Saxon American population. Of course, they were with us, and because the same sort of people and everything. the reason you're not having that now is the 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 real Americans don't run America. Okay, the
True.
type of the
True.
type of person.
Yeah. True.
America is not run by Americans. It's run by foreign hostile entities who hate Europe, hate British people. They hate all forms of European, society, and the reason they want the full. I mean, largely speaking, the Falkland Islands is a. I mean, it does represent Port Stanley and the outlying settlements around and about. They are rather traditional. They're very much like an. I mean, when I see images of it, it reminds me of Dartmoor and parts of Devon because it's
Oh
very
yeah,
similar
I
topography.
watched a documentary about the Falklands last year, which I actually put on the Discord, and it looks really nice. And
Yeah,
also, what people get wrong about the Falklands is the Falklands War was fought in the winter. People forget it was in the Southern Hemisphere,
yeah. It was so it's the
and
winter.
yeah, it was the middle of the winter, and the Falklands in the summer, which, like all of us in the Southern Hemisphere, our summer is in your winter. The Falklands in the summer is reasonably pleasant, actually. You know,
Yeah,
it's not freezing cold. It doesn't snow. You know, this is a winter thing. That's why people remember. You know, they watched film of the war in 1982, but that was the middle of the winter.
Yeah, but today America is run by a very nasty set of people who hate Americans themselves. They, you know, they're basically it's just a collection of con artists. And thinking back to the MAGA movement in 2016, and I was thinking back about this with MAGA, it was genuinely, I think it did attract, and it was for, 'cause if you think about it, it was for like the blue collar worker in the Rust Belt, with a bit of American nativist sentiment about it, a sort of American nationalism. That was it for. Today it is just a collection of what would it be, like big to small tech bros, crypto con artists, and you know that lot. I mean that's what the movement makes up, and that's what America. That's the leadership of America. And yeah, I saw how much they were like the sort of idiots within the movement. When they were asked about Argentina's claims to the Falkland Islands, they sort of said, "Well, Monroe Doctrine," as a justification to allow Argentina. By the way, Argentina is now like I guess like an extension of Israel in the way they behave. I mean, what the fuck is that about? Argentina.
Mm.
Argentina, the historic ally of the historic ally of Israel and the Jewish people. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's it's strange. But yeah, no, listen, I don't think there's a danger, an immediate danger of the Argentinians trying to invade the Falklands. If they succeed in getting the extra, I think it's 16 F-16s, as well as the 6 they've already got, and if they succeed in getting submarines and what have you, then yeah, things may change. But we can only hope that by that stage, Britain has a government which actually believes in having a Royal Navy, and maybe we'd be able to counter that. But at the moment, we would find it very, very difficult in terms of Navy stuff. But we can certainly reinforce it by air at the moment.
Well, we should copy American playbook and do a preemptive strike. The Argentines are days away from developing a relatively competent aircraft.
Yeah. No, I get your point. Listen, I don't understand why America got in that war with Iran. I mean, I do. It was because of Israel, but that why they allowed themselves to be dragged into that war, I do not understand. Because America can gain nothing from it, and the price of oil at the moment is going up and up and up.
If you listen,
there's
when everyone's finished and done here, when we've gone to bed and finished the stream tonight, if everybody listening in chat wants to look up the Nixon tapes, particularly the Nixon tapes with Reverend Billy Graham, there's a lot of info in there that might bear in mind this is what 1971, 72. So
yeah, it's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago, but they do talk about the growing influence within and bearing in mind the influence back then is, with that lobby was minimal in the sense of, in the sense of its influence was not as it is compared today in the United States, where it's quite total. Back then, that you did have institutions like the CIA, like with the FBI, you had Hoover and everything. There was there were institutions which were not under that remit. I mean, today though, America, which prides itself on free speech and First Amendment, you have to look at who you can't criticize, and I mean that's what it comes down to. And I mean and I think that's why a lot of people have sort of checked out of the MAGA movement, and I think that's why a lot of people have they've gone off and there's done their own things, and that people that we know on the American right side are either fed up or have gone one way or another. And and as Mitch said in chat there, you can't criticize that lobby, and you can't criticize blacks, and you can't, because this is like the civil rights unholy trifecta that you can't criticize.
Is Charlotte Hendricks the blonde chick who was defending a kid in the park?
Yeah, and the guy.
I would just say one thing to that. She got $1,000 fine, I believe. She made a hell of a lot more than that on GoFundMe, and as someone pointed out on X, I don't think she really cares. Like she made about 50 or 60 times that in terms of GoFundMe. So I don't think she really cares about that $1,000 fine. I agree she shouldn't have got a fine at all, but whatever.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We've done a lot of history. We've talked about the Americans quite a lot. I will just say to people in the chat, guys, if you would like to support the channel, you can do so via Subscribe Star. That is pinned in the bottom of the chat, and it's a whole $5 a month, and I would very much appreciate it if you would support us. We have a whole 6 subscribers at the moment, and I need at least about 24. So if you can afford $5 a month, please do help us out. I would much appreciate it, because I'm spending that amount on running this channel, basically to pay for StreamYards and X mainly, as well as my own internet stuff. But anyway, actually more than that. If I include my own internet stuff, it comes to more like $350 a month rather than the $160 I'd like to be able to get. But anyway, let's also please like the stream, guys. It really does help with the algorithm on YouTube. Press the thumbs up button. Takes you a second, doesn't cost you a penny. Does anyone have a first subject for this week, even though we're way over an hour into the stream? Adam and or Mitch?
Cody Harper got had the charges against him dropped, if anyone's interested.
I saw that was the white chap who was assaulted by the black people and arrested by the female cop, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he turned around and swung at her thinking she was one of them. Yeah, it took a month, but yeah, they dropped the charges. And the funny thing was as well is they were saying, oh, no one's been detained. Funny enough, the police did actually interview the two guys that assaulted him, or they spoke to them, but they didn't actually detain them and they didn't put any charges to them. So yeah, very weird. There's a name for the sort of sentence they gave them, where they essentially did it, without a legal process, but it was like basically just a telling off. But I can't
So
remember
they
what it
got
was.
slap on the wrist, basically.
Well, not even that.
Yeah. Oh, well, the black guys attacking white guys is completely acceptable in Britain these days, basically. That's what it seems like, anyway.
Yeah. And they waited as well. They waited until like the day before his court date before they dropped the charges. Like, they're very much like using the process as a punishment, because none of that would stand up in the justice system otherwise.
It's a bit like the Anne Widdecombe assassination. We now know that she was hit on the head about 21 times with a hammer. This was a 78-year-old little old lady.
Yeah.
And of course, the guy is not even going to go to court until next June, apparently. Like, could they have set it back any further than that? I don't think so.
Well, I mean,
and you can't speculate.
Well, fuck that! I'm going to speculate. I mean,
look, we're not going to speculate on the guilty or innocence of the guy accused of the crime. The guy accused of the crime is apparently an extreme left winger. We've had all this bullshit about, he might be mentally retarded. I somehow doubt the truth of that. But also, of course, the cops have spent a long time making sure nobody can find anything from him online and all the rest of it, which is why they didn't release any information about the dude earlier than they could have. Should have, I should say. And also, of course, Axel Rudy Cabana, the filth who killed the 3 little girls in Southport, he's now going to be moved to a mental hospital, apparently. Where he's going to get
Broadmoor, which can have, like,
he's going to get a university-style room. There's a gym. He'll have a television. There's a swimming pool. So he's really going to suffer, isn't he? Yeah, that's good.
Well, the thing is, of course, is if you think back to, because we're talking about Anne Widdecombe as well, if you think back to the Joe Cox killer, that guy whose name escapes me, I might be misremembering this, but I believe he approached mental health services like in the weeks leading up to that attack,
and was ignored.
Yeah, he was turned away, and he's now just marked down as like a far right terrorist, and that's the end of the conversation.
Don't suppose he'll make it. I don't suppose he'll go to Broadmoor somehow.
I mean, it's worth noting. I mean, Joe Cox was killed right at the time when it looked like the pro-EU side was losing the referendum. So, while I don't usually indulge, because I mean, as I was critical of
Charlie you always Kirk. Do, but go on.
I know, because I like stuff like Charlie Kirk and stuff. There are things like, that stack right, that you can say, I don't believe in like with Charlie Kirk stuff like the flying Egyptian jets or something like that, or the exploding microphone, because that just it's all nonsense. But with this stuff, in the way that they behave, and particularly with Dan Widdecombe's one as well, the secrecy behind it doesn't really. I don't know why it would warrant this level of secrecy. Does it?
I think they're just uncomfortable talking about it.
Yeah, because he's a lefty.
I mean,
it's as simple as this. He's a lefty.
If you look at
criticize the left,
it's not just that though. If you go and look at like the grooming gang issues, right? One of the narratives that would keep coming up over and over again is, well, this plays into like a far right fantasy. This plays into this. This plays into the far right narrative of that. That's their biggest fear, and it's like the Anne Widdecombe thing plays into the far right narrative that lefties are violent. Of course, it plays into that narrative because the narrative is true. But but that's their fear, though. That's why they just desperately just don't want to talk about this. They'll go on about, oh, don't speculate because you'll get the court case thrown out, even though I can't name a single court case that's been thrown out due to public speculation ever.
No. Listen, I remember when every court case was, if it was a big like murder trial or something, it was big headlines in the newspapers every day on the front page. Never heard of anyone getting their case chucked out because of that. Never did.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like the reason why I'm like I don't understand the secrecy is like obviously they want it to be secret, and they've told the media not, because the media haven't really reported on it. They've had to report on like a bit of it because there was like the breaking news of, oh, actually she was murdered.
Lefties again.
Yeah, I know.
Who are the media and the reporters? They're all shit libs. If they're not lefties, they're shit libs. You know.
Yeah, but every single media outlet is effectively controlled by the state because you have Ofcom, which is a state body which controls what you say. So that every media outlet, whether you like it or not, is controlled by the state. But the secrecy behind it, if they, like take him down to Westminster, for example, they did that with Joe Cox's killer. And that was also, but why can't it be held in? Well, I guess in this case, why couldn't it be held down in Exeter? Near to the area where this happened, or up in his neck of the woods, up in Yorkshire.
Oh, they'll do it in London, where you're going to get shit libs and immigrants on the jury for sure. They will.
Yeah, but there's no precedent for it. That's the thing, because it's like, well, what? And then you have then the discrepancy, but the discrepancy I'm talking about, like the actual getting down there within that time limit. And you have this with, same with David Amos's murder, is that you don't even need to really hide it. The media can just either not talk about it, a wall of silence. And even, I hate to say it, even your right-wing commentators, because the media and the state are good with jangling the keys of like, oh, look at this like woke coded stuff. Get angry at that, and to distract people from
AI. How much did we hear about the two-tier caste armor Ukrainian rent boy stuff on the mainstream media? Nobody said a word about it.
No, and not many people in our spaces really talked about it or went into detail of like why did they target his house?
We talked about it at least.
Well, there aren't that many details. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, we didn't get
because many, there is such a media silence.
But you have to. But I remember what we did say is they knew Keir Starmer well enough to know his private address, not number 10, and also his car, in order to burn it, set it on fire. Yeah. And how did these Ukrainian rent boys know that? Well, I mean, I leave that to people to speculate, frankly.
I mean, I don't even know what the official narrative behind that is now, like, because it is now somewhat public, but I don't know what the official narrative is behind
There is no official narrative. They just ignored it because none of the media even talked about it.
But they do acknowledge that these Ukrainian rent boys did that, though. That's the thing. Like, it is acknowledged in the state canon,
and it is strongly hinted at that Keir Starmer's marriage is a bit of a sham. It's giving himself a beard or whatever they call it. And that Keir Starmer is in fact probably gay. But this is pretty common knowledge, but no one talks about it because he's a Labour prime minister. He was the ex-Labour prime minister. Guys, what do we think about number 10 North? Don't you think that's a really good idea?
Well, actually, just before we start talking about that, on the bum boy thing, what's worth more to the standards committee? 5 million quid from a from a millionaire in Asia, or what was it, like 4 Ukrainian bum boys
Yeah,
pissed off to the point of committing arson? Like, yeah,
indeed.
was they called it like gifting kind? Like, does that count under?
Well, I mean, I think I don't think your question's rhetorical, Adam, obviously, because we all know the answer to that question. I mean, I'm no fan of Nigel Farage in particular, but I know what I think is a worse offence and what is a more dangerous offence from a British security point of view, and I'd say that would be the Prime Minister and the Ukrainian bum boys, frankly. But that's just me.
I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg, through donors, financial backers, and interest in America, particularly within the CPAC movement, they're getting him and the CPAC, the British version, get CPAC, are getting I think like 15 million, and this is going to be benefiting even sitting Conservative MPs. Now, so compared to the 5 million as well, but also, and this is something that I've been sort of worth mentioning. This is for the Conservative Party, and this is 15 million. You can't really disregard the Conservative Party. I mean, if I'm absolutely honest, I think reform now it's reached its peak, and it's going the way of UKIP and the Brexit Party under Farage. It's gone from any high point now, and I think it's on its way out. I don't see reform being able to continue, and I think the Tories will bounce back with Labour.
It does seem that way already. It's like 20% when I was looking at YouGov polling.
Yeah, the Conservatives are on 20%. Yes, I saw that. Fucking people really need to wake up. They really do.
Last I saw, it was like 26% Reform, 25% Labour.
Yeah.
Again, that's absolutely crazy and insane. But all right, yeah. I mean, and I'm a Restore Britain supporter, as anyone who listens to this show knows.
I mean, the Tory voters, though, the problem is the last remnants of them can't be moved at this point.
They'll
some
just
that are related to me who are very old, and you'll sit there slagging off the Tories, and they agree with everything you say, and then they'll come out of the voting booth, and you're like, "Who did you vote for?" And they're like, "Oh, well, the Conservatives." My God, why?
Yeah, it's like there were kids of Tory voters voting in Andy Burnham because they wanted to screw over Farage back up by-election.
Yeah, and it's like it's so absurd, and you get this shit lib founding myth stuff where they're like, oh well, the problem is that Farage is this sleazebag who's, it's like, okay, yeah, true, and it's like he's trying to do all this for like international finance, and it's like I think international finance is probably on the side of the government that's already in power. They could be on the side of governments that are out of power, but that's kind of by the by.
It's when they say that he's a Russian asset, and it's like, you dumb fuck. If you actually look at Farage, it's quite clearly he's like he's backed by he was backed by a lot of American interest. He has like that. He sort of became part of those same networks that the MAGA movement was bringing beforehand.
He's certainly not pro-Russian. I mean, I'm relatively pro-Russian, but Nigel Farage certainly is not. Could I ask, guys, what people think of this comment from the chat? Who says the outcome of the next general election will end up being a reform Tory coalition?
Well, so
I think that's quite likely, actually. But
so this has actually kind of frustrated me recently, because I have been like, I like to talk, not to talk about online politics, but I do quite like, there's like a set of online people who I quite like, who I've become quite fractured from, because they're sort of still in the reform camp, and obviously I'm more of a I'm a bit more in the restore field nowadays, at least to the extent at which you can be. And
Same.
when you look at like when you try and read their criticisms on like what restore is, it basically boils down to the idea that restore has been built by the conservatives, by Kemi Badenoch's conservatives, to sort of get the right back into the Tories, essentially.
That's a bullshit, but yes. Okay.
Yeah, and that their argument is that all the Tories that left to join Reform are all like the actual genuine anti-immigration Tories. And it's like, I'm going to overlook the fact that quite a few of the people saying this were also standing for Kemi Badenoch just like, a year or two ago.
What about the biggest conservative who joined Reform? Wasn't he responsible for bringing all those Afghans into Britain?
Jenrick.
Jenrick.
So they say that technically Jenrick wasn't actually in charge of immigration when that was done. So therefore, which also kind of, which to me also kind of seems like a silly criticism, because you're saying, okay, so is he not taking responsibility for all the immigration that happened when he was in charge of it either?
I certainly remember him defending it in print.
Jenrick put in print that the Afghans would be New Britons, but he also then went on to say a few weeks later, when after October 7, after the October 7 Hamas campaign into Israel and the response to that and the fallout, he said that at every port there should be a flag of Israel and a Jewish menorah at every port of entry, and that they'd have to like kiss it or whatever the fuck they do over there. And
well, he is Jewish, so
yeah, and he is, and then you look at all the other, and a similar thing with the other Reform MP, that Hungarian faggot who's down in Devizes, same principle. So I do apologise for the term I just used, but at the end of the day, if you look at Reform was built up by Aaron Banks, and also by a lot of mapping as well. Restore Britain again was built up by the likes of Mappin, but also allegedly Palantir as well, and Elon Musk and that network is being pushed. Look, whether who is backing who, there is this, and I think people on the right, and I do remind people, you can't be naive when you have these big political parties, national political parties, particularly in the globalized world we live in. You're always going to have backers and people behind it, and it's going to be made out. And if you operate a party with no backers, you basically got the National Rebirth Party. If I'm being honest, that is what you got when you have no backers, and it's a political party where nothing really goes anywhere, but you can sort of dress up as like in your 1940s waistcoat outfit and trench coat and sort of have a good time. And look, there's not me sort of dissing them, because I'm sure a lot of them have good policies and have the right
those
attitude.
movements are important too in their own way.
They are important, but I think we will have to be realistic of where politics is at the moment, where what we want is, and I don't. There's a good chance that Reform. I think out of the two, I think Reform is more likely to collapse than Restore would. I think Restore probably has a sort of different edge over than Reform. But at the same time, it depends what happens with Restore. If Restore gets filled with the same problems and people who are who create like the what would I put, like these dipshit conservatives, then it's going to suffer the same fate, because that's how it works.
Hang on there, AI. Let me bring this back to the original question. Do we think the outcome of the next general election is likely to be a reform, so-called conservative coalition? Because I think that's quite likely. I don't
Do you
see
think
the
Badenoch's party can be second fiddle to a party with Jenrick in it?
I'm not sure, to be honest. And do they have much choice? And also, you know, if that happens, then Conservatives are going to get major cabinet ministries for sure. And my problem with it is this: I think a purely reform government would not do anywhere near enough to start to change things in our direction. They just wouldn't. And a reform conservative coalition would do even less, basically. That's my problem with it. I can't see.
They
the
seem
Labour
not to bring this
Party-
back to Restore, but they seem like the people that are critical of Restore from Reform have seem very, very hell bent on claiming that will be an eventuality because Restore is splitting the vote. Like even in like the Manchester by-election, they're still trying to push the narrative that that Restore
nonsense.
split the vote.
Well, even if all the Restore voters had voted Reform, Burnham would still easily have won. So that's bullshit for a start. But I'd just say this: realistically, what I want to happen at the next election is for Restore to get 12 or 15 MPs. If Restore get 12 or 15 MPs, they can be a pressure group on the government, which hopefully won't be the Labour Party. I don't think it will be the Labour Party. I think the Labour Party are not going to win the next election.
They don't need more MPs to be a pressure group, though.
Well, yeah, but it would help.
I mean, you look at
also no. You just to let you understand, Adam, if Restore can get 12 or 15 MPs at the next election, and I'm being optimistic there. I think that's a lot, to be honest. All right. And you know, people, I think it's completely unrealistic to think Restore are going to win the next election. I'm sorry. I wish it wasn't, but I just don't see how they will. But if they got 12 or 15 MPs, they are then set up for a major breakthrough at the election after that. And they would be powerful enough to keep a reform government honest. But I'll be honest, I think if it's a reform conservative coalition government, they'll do nothing. They'll do literally nothing.
I mean, there's the other thing is, if you remember back, and you know, while policy wise they're not identical, but there is similarities. In Greece, you had the Golden Dawn, which, like Restore, I mean, I will say the Golden Dawn were very, like, you know, nationalistic, neo-Nazi in aesthetic, but they, soon as they started gaining seats, the government there, they were just banned. And I do think that if Restore ever got to that number, Duke, I think the British state would just ban the party. I mean, I could see that.
I disagree with you on that one. Greece has, how can I put it, a checkered history in terms of its democratic institutions. Like, you know, in World War II, they were a military dictatorship, basically. After World War II, they almost became a communist dictatorship for a while, until Britain sent troops there and stopped it. But yeah, I don't think you can compare the two. And also, Greece were more bankrupt than even Britain is at the moment, although we are certainly going in that direction.
But the thing is, as well, is that like they could ban Restore here, but it would actually play better for us than it would
Yes.
what they did to the Golden Dawn in Greece, because it would actually be a massive divergence from standing
Or
policy.
I mean, the best
Yes.
example is the AFD in Germany recently. As soon as they started gaining momentum in, I mean, I think in like particular local elections, like state elections in Germany, they actually banned them from even running.
Again, it's a different system though, AI.
It is, but it's something you can't ignore because, of course,
Oh no, look, you can't ignore it. But I mean, as Atman said, if they did that, and given that Restore Britain is in no sense a neo-Nazi party at all, I don't know what excuse they'd use, and they'd find it quite hard to justify this. I think.
Well,
And
that's
it
the thing.
would-
I don't
it-
think they would
and
try.
it-
I don't think they
yeah.
would justify it.
No,
I mean,
don't. And also, it would simply tip far more normies over to our side of the fence if they did that.
I mean, maybe, but I think the problem is you would just be.
I mean, it depends how it depends how they would justify it. I guess that it depends what sort of what the reason, if that was to occur, like what reason they would give. But
well, this is the thing though. You look at Epping Hotel, right? The Epping Hotel fiasco. And this is why when people say like, oh, they had this person killed, or they had this thing done, this massive news story created to like cover up this other news story, and it's like you couldn't actually imagine these people with that sort of power, because these are the people that turned around and they were just like, yeah, actually, no, you're not allowed to use the legal means that we otherwise gave to you to close down one of these hotels. And it just like barefaced, like mask off, like, no, this is the way it's going to be. Fuck
Yeah,
you.
there
And
is
it's
that,
like,
but
you could imagine if you gave those sorts of people the actual ability or the actual power to, they wouldn't know when to stop. It would be an absolute tidal wave. And the thing is they can ban parties now, but it's kind of considered just too unthinkable to them. Once they do it that once, even if it's under a really shitty pretense, they'll just do it again and again and again under worse and worse pretenses, and the whole system will just be turned to complete sludge.
Well, yeah, and it's going that way anyway. But I mean, but also look at the made-up supposed right-wing terror attack that was going to happen on the big Muslim gathering.
Yeah,
where they arrested 12 people, and the Prime Minister spoke about it, and the Home Secretary, and it was on the headlines of all the newspapers, and they had to release everybody because there was no terror plot. It was a complete lie. And if they'd have taken it to court, it would have obviously come out, because otherwise they would have taken them to court. I mean, the only thing they were able to charge anyone with is that somebody had a stun gun, which is like a taser, basically.
That he probably bought in France on a day trip.
Yeah, France or Belgium or Holland or something. Yeah, it's just nonsense,
I mean, I heard with that particular incident that there was like a pandemic, because it was widely publicized that this, like this sort of like stately home, there was this some sort of Islamic holiday gathering.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between a planned demo with a few banners and maybe a flag or two and a terrorist attack. They're not the same thing at all. And obviously there was no evidence whatsoever for a terrorist attack, because if there'd been even a little bit of evidence, these people would have been charged.
Well, I mean, it isn't the first time the old false flag it can be brought out.
Well, look, listen. I know that it was done to take attention away from the Anne Widdecombe assassination. Of course, it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
I mean, it's like today, for example, a bit of a random story. Some like young Irish girl was driving up to the border, and she was been arrested for she was intercepted by Irish police with a bomb. Now, I'm not saying that it's the whole scenario is fake. If I was to guess, she probably was entrapped. I mean, she probably is some like nutty Irish Republican wannabe who has romanticized ideas of Irish nationalism, and she probably got involved with somebody who was undercover, and gave them the bomb, and from my understanding, her and the vehicle was seized upon immediately as she got to the border. So, that's the story that's come out today. And so now the conversation from that has gone back to, Irish sovereignty, the backstop, the border question, and all that. If you notice with the states, whenever they want to broach a topic, they'll have like a starter. There's like a starter story to get the ball rolling, and they will fabricate it. David Amos, his killing, if you remember, the legacy from that was they changed, they put in like legislation to go after bullying of MPs online. That was the takeaway from his death.
They'll always do that, though, Adam.
I mean, that's how the online safety group started.
What was the first thing that people stood up in Parliament and said about Anne Widdecombe's assassination by a lefty? Oh, well, we've got to try and shut down free speech on the internet because that's the problem. Even though the actual instances of right-wing terrorism are infinitesimally small. But they're not interested in that. They're only interested in looking at right-wing terrorists. This is why this nutcase communist lefty who murdered Anne Widdecombe wasn't. No one knew anything about it because they're not even, people like Prevent, etc. They're not even looking at the left at all, really.
Well, that guy, there wouldn't have been any instance for that guy to get sent to them because I've heard mixed things. I heard first he was unemployed, and then someone said he did have a job. So I don't know which one it was, but he has no footprint. He just doesn't seem to really exist anywhere. He was listed as a loner.
Yeah, wow.
He was. Even if Prevent was ever interested in seeing anyone like him, he would never be in a situation where he'd get referred to them.
Well, yeah, but Adam, to be honest, we don't know what his internet footprint was, for example, because the police gave themselves weeks to totally clean it.
Well, you could still find it though. Like
if they hadn't removed it, you could.
There's lots of, no, even without removing it, like there's online archives, there's all sorts of footprints. There's even in other instances where social media accounts have been deleted after the fact, people have still been able to dig up stuff afterwards.
Sometimes, but not very often. And also, don't forget, mostly in America, where there is a lot more freedom of information and freedom of speech than there is in Britain.
I don't think it's got anything to do with the freedom of speech. It's just to do with the way the internet works. You're not going to get everything, but you're going to get there's going to be stuff left over. Like that lady Grace Blakely, right? Obviously, people have been talking about Gary Economics recently. Grace Blakely is actually one and the same as Gary Economics. They're both from a like George Soros young influencer think tank. Funny enough, she came to Canterbury, my home city, to canvass for Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. And she was giggling and laughing on Twitter with other people who went out about how awfully white Canterbury was. Of course, after the place she lived in London got worse, she moved to Cornwall. And
which is another awfully white place, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, amazing. But these people are incredible. But like, I can't see that original tweet now because I think she purged everything before a certain time period. But I can still see the replies to it and the stuff that happened there. I can still see that there was a user interaction there. So it's like, even in that instance,
I tell you what I find strange, Adam. This guy was 28. Now, all right, you look at him; he looks a hell of a lot older.
It's a rough 28.
Yeah, he's honest. My body's in better condition than his, and I'm 61. But I'm not a lefty. To me, a 28-year-old with no internet footprint, that's vanishingly rare, isn't it? Facebook. Even if he was a total normie, and apparently he wasn't, he was a pretty full-on left-wing commie. But Facebook, Twitter, Discord. Given he was a lefty Reddit, places like that. How many 28-year-olds don't have any internet footprint? I've never heard of such a thing.
I mean, a lot of them seem to be active on places like WhatsApp, but not places that need accounts.
WhatsApp. Also, one that used to be Chinese.
I mean, I think you'd be surprised at the amount of people, especially on Reddit, who just ghost and they never post anything.
I mean, also people on Reddit, you can post anonymously. You can post under a pseudonym. Like we.
That's not
not
Twitter,
using
really.
Like what we do, right? So
yeah, I mean, you'd probably still be able to find that account with enough online sleuthing if that was the case. But he probably just never posted. He probably just consumed.
Well,
maybe he was a victim of the online slop farm.
Yeah, I mean, if you run a YouTube channel, you know very well you have a hell of a lot more subscribers than you do even people in chat. Let alone people who actually come on your streams or anything like that. The vast majority of people who watch, for example, like we'll get, I don't know, 30 people maybe sometimes in the chat, but we don't do streams anymore.
Actually, no, Arlo's right. He was on Reddit because he was on r/Green and Pleasant, which is a horrific subreddit.
He was on Reddit.
But, yeah.
What is the subreddit?
Oh, that's right. Yes, now you remind me. I remember.
Green and Pleasant. I've heard of it.
Yes,
what is
and
it?
that's a very nasty. It's a very nasty left wing site.
Well, it's a British specific subreddit, but it's obviously was supposed to be. I think.
Is it nonsense?
They're very
it's for a leftist. Oh.
Yes, of course they're nonsense, but also they hate the British Empire and imperialism and all that stuff.
It used to just be a generic sort of like British subreddit, obviously Green and Pleasant for Green and Pleasant Land, but like all subreddits, it's just been subverted. Now it's just rank leftism. It's
as a
current top trending topics are.
As I said, I did actually see some stuff about this earlier. Thank you for reminding us, Arlo. But yeah, it's I know that they're extremely anti-imperialism. They're pro-reparations to black and brown countries and all this shit. Very, very leftist, as Adam says.
Yeah, I've also seen a clip of him going around speaking at a Communist Party event as well. That was the other thing I was going to bring up. He doesn't sound very northern. I will say that.
So the Green and Pleasant subreddit, right? They've got a commie logo that's also got a pride flag on it at the end of the name now.
Oh, so typical.
It says they'll prescribe us next. We don't talk about Greg's on this sub. We're not a space for the Green Party or liberals or other fake leftists.
Oh my god.
Based.
Well, no, though, because they it's not that they're like, oh, we're actual communists. They're actually just like, oh no, we're just every other leftist. We just pretend to be edgy.
Yeah.
Someone's
saying that's a Rotherham accent for sure. I don't come from that part of the world, so I couldn't say.
It could be. I don't know. I didn't. Well, I say I'm not from that part of the world. It just didn't sound.
Mitch, you're the furthest north of any of us. What do you think? Has he got a northern accent?
Never heard it. I ain't heard his voice.
Fair enough.
So
someone
there's
asked
another video as well of they're filming a protest. This is from the r/Green and Pleasant, and there's a video of one of these protests up in Scotland. One of the like the sort of slightly more right of centre anti-immigration protests, and one of the guys walks past and like puts his arm in the air and they're like spurging out over this, going, "Oh, woman protester out today as usual. Seen a Nazi salute. They're attacking brown people." And yeah, these people are insane.
I say Scottish redemption arc. The Scottish are having a redemption arc.
Yeah.
Henry Long in the chat comes from that part of the world, and he said that he has got an accent from where he comes from. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
If a local says that, I'm going to agree with him. So fine.
Another
Henry,
one they've
we'll
posted.
agree.
They've got a subheading called "Real Gammon Hours." So yeah, they're not like other leftists, but they just like speak like the Guardian.
Come out with all the usual shit, basically.
And they got a headline from the BBC. Most people arrested during Henry Novak protests have been reported for domestic abuse. It's most criminals are going to have previous criminal offences. It's like, oh wow, what incredible investigative journalism. And then they've put up when is this country going to address the violent far right activists and prosecute the hate preachers who radicalise them?
Can I just say something? I don't know if this is true in Britain, but British and Australian laws tend to be fairly similar. You know, when Australia brought in a online safety thing, so did Britain. They're not very different, really. And the governments are pretty much the same globalist assholes, really. In Australia, you can get done for domestic assault for slamming the door or shouting at your wife. If you leave a room and slam the door after you, she can call the cops and they'll come and arrest you and drag you out your own house. No lie.
I mean, the headline does say reported, not convicted.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could believe it. Like, the thing is, at the end of the day, if you go and look at a lot of these protests, you know, there will be a good number of people there who aren't actually connected to it. They just see shit kicking off, and they're sort of
fair enough.
They're troublemakers, and they jump in.
EF is saying that's insane. Let me tell you, mate, that is the God's honest truth in Australia. If you raise your voice to your wife and she calls the cops here have almost no choice but to come and arrest you if she insists on charging you. And the same thing if you slam a door leaving a room. That's domestic violence these days in Australia, unless, of course, you're an Aboriginal.
Domestic abuse in the UK, obviously, which includes violence, also it covers now like controlling, coercive, and threatening behaviour, and so there's like which wider,
could be almost anything.
Yeah. Can I buy those shoes? No, we haven't got enough money. Please help.
Yeah, help, cops. He's abusing me. He won't let me have these £250 shoes.
Exactly. I will look after the credit card this week.
Oh my God, I don't know, mate. We're in a very bad place, I tell you honestly. We really are. And then you wonder why young chaps like you guys have such problems with dating. I wouldn't want to be dating young chicks these days. I've got to tell you, I wouldn't. Really wouldn't.
Yeah. I was talking to one this week, as I do.
Well, good on you. Hope she was cute.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. It was awkward because she looks like a supermodel, and I'm just an ogre. This is the problem.
Oh, come on, you're tall as fuck, mate. I mean, that's a plus for girls.
I know, but I'm being just me being real now with you four here and everyone listening. She really does look like a supermodel. It's like a bit way out of my league.
Always aim higher, mate. Always aim higher. And don't forget, women's idea of beauty is not the same as male's idea of beauty.
Yeah.
Often includes other things like voice, smell, charisma, all sorts of things. And as I said, being tall always an advantage with a girl, mate. You're never wrong if you're tall with a girl.
That is true. That is true. That is.
They like it, mate. They like it. Look, listen, I'm not as tall as you, but I'm 6'2", and I'm glad I'm 6'2", frankly, because it's always done me favors with females.
Without my height, I probably would actually be like a genuine like incel, like a real incel. But yeah, that definitely does help. Yeah. So, but actually, she looks like, you know, the elves from Lord of the Rings, like the female elves. I mean, not the hobbits. Yeah, she's got that sort of physiognomy, which is I mean,
so you're talking girls like that lovely dark-haired girl, and also the what was her name? Kate Blanchett played
Kate
one
Blanchett.
and all that. Yeah.
I would say
yes.
The stature of Kate Blanchett, but obviously, you know, younger. Yeah, like younger. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, sounds nice. I'd pursue it if I were you, man. But yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, I don't know. Someone asked us earlier if we thought the British public, the ordinary normie public. There you go. Thank you, EF3833.
Liv
That's
Tyler.
the ones. Yeah, both nice. I like Kate Blanchett, especially when she was younger. I always thought she was pretty cute, actually. But anyway. Someone asked us earlier if we thought the normie British public would ever become race realist. I think more of them become race realist every week, frankly, because of the increased immigration. And you know, the more immigration there is, the more people see the actual result of this, and it makes people more race realist. I don't know if other people agree with me on that, but that's certainly been what I've seen in Australia.
I think everyone. Is. I think most people, most white British people are. But what happens, and I've seen this happen like in real time on multiple occasions. Normies will self-correct themselves when they realize a conversation or their own trail of thought goes into scary Nazi territory. They will, you know, or what they would describe as Nazi, like racial territory. The propaganda that, you know, that's generational will kick in, and they'll self-correct themselves. And so it's like, I mean, that's sort of like the problem with the normies, is effectively the propaganda. While modern propaganda doesn't work, the long-term propaganda, like last 80 odd years, it's still there. It's there, and it's still prevalent as ever.
I think. All right, listen. I hesitate to generalize from my own experience, because most of my mates, most of them, are ex-military guys, and ex-military guys were always pretty realistic about this stuff. I found. So yeah, and we've always been like my mates and I, and they're not all Australian. I've got mates who are South Africans, Americans, Canadians, Brits, and we've all pretty much had the same opinion. And not all army. I've got mates who were Navy, Air Force, you name it, and Marines, and yeah, we've always been pretty realistic about race, and that it does certainly make a difference. And you know, there's a reason you don't want to live in the hood, if you're in America, or Birmingham, for example, or some places in Sydney and Melbourne in Australia. But talking about the wider people that I know, because you know, if I go to a barbecue or something, a mate's place, there'll be people there who are people I don't know that he does, and talking to some of those guys, ordinary civilian normies, I think they're waking up to it more and more. To be honest, I really do, because they see it. And yes, you're right, AI, about that long-term propaganda and the brainwashing in schools and universities and what have you. But the evidence of one's own eyes does eventually start to overcome this stuff, and people are just seeing it more because there's more immigration.
I mean, for me, before I was, my sort of political awakening in that sense to what it is now, I self-corrected. I sort of, the propaganda for me did kick in a few times. I was like, when I was very young, so before, like when I was a child, effectively, I did, I mean, even when I knew there was something off, but then I just thought, oh no, it's just self-correct, sort of thing. But even though when there's something off, I mean, I had this really bizarre conversation the other day with a work colleague. We were talking about immigration, and we were talking about this is where I was like really lost. Now, maybe because it got into the race bit. I was talking about the the HMOs in our area and how it prioritizes foreign migrants, but also how local companies and organizations have these hiring practices abroad where actually they'll be posting the jobs directly abroad. They won't even post it here in Britain. So they're deliberately hiring foreign labour without even, because they make it sound like, oh, we post these job ads around Britain, but there's not enough people to fill the roles. A lot of that's just made up nonsense. They just post it overseas to begin with. But then I was saying, oh, so and so, a work colleague who had got into a bit of trouble because there was an official document and the quality of her English was really poor, and the third party who was reading it was absolutely livid and made a complaint and phoned us back and really let rip, which was quite rightly so, because the English quality was like was below like an 8-year-old's level of English. And during this conversation, I said, and they said, "Well, you think that was right, and to be upset about it?" Even though we were just talking about immigration, and the person I was talking to was in total agreement about the problems of it. And I said, "Well, yeah, because you can't have someone in this country who can barely speak English." And then it was like, "Oh, well, that's very bigoted." And it was like, "Well, hold on a second, like, whoa. We were talking about HMOs, and
But it's an English speaking country. If you can't write English, how can you do business in an English speaking country? You can't, can you, AI?
No. This is the problem that I find with a lot of normies, is that there's in some cases they don't even really make sense within themselves. Like I think ultimately because in that particular topic, when I was talking about English, there was like a racial element to this, in the sense of everyone involved who was getting pissed off was English, and the one person who fucked up was a foreign national. So it sort of came down to the thing of that's sort of like identifying the problem, but that for that person was a step too far, even though that person largely agrees with probably like the sort of genuine, the sort of position on immigration, and there's too much of it and it's causing all these problems. But this is the problem that you face, and it's not even really a normie problem. I think ultimately it's a right-wing political problem, because Farage, he's reform flip-flopped on immigration. They like to bait the right-wing vote in this country to think that they're against immigration, against the excesses of mass immigration, but then they come out and support it. And then,
why do you think, though, AI, that reform, at one stage, I think, were 35% 34% in the polls are now down to 25%. And it isn't because they're too. It's not because they're too right wing. It's because they're too left wing.
No, and I hate. I know we're largely supporting of Restore, but unfortunately, there were people who were, I guess, what would you call it, in reform supporters like that Jack Hatters and stuff, who were trying to do their based base watching of Rupert with Rogan and other interviews, and then when he came out and somewhat was said, "Oh yeah, I'm okay for immigration if it's like high skilled or something like that." And look, we can argue the topic of it. I think Lowe's completely wrong on that and everything. I don't know. I think it's a mistake to go on that line, but at the same time. There is a problem with the right because there's not enough self-confidence to say we are British, we are a group. Being being racist is actually kind of normal. It's a normal experience that every group faces.
Every other group except white people are racist and are allowed to be racist.
Exactly, and you can also it's not, and then it's like, I mean, what I'm talking about in this scenario, it was actually about it's about a set of standards. The fact that there's an English speaking country, you speak English, that's a standard. But at the same time, there is this you know there is this perceived fear of being nasty about it. And I think this has just been a problem with the right in this country in general, is that they don't. I mean, the Conservatives have been the opposite. I mean, they've supported mass immigration all the way through, but with reform and so on, a lot of the main parties
We
that
seem to have lost Adam, and hopefully he'll come back.
Yeah,
because
but
normally if he's leaving, he puts a message in the private chat, and he hasn't. So he may have just dropped off. Hopefully he'll come back. Look, you're totally correct, AI. Of course you are. I just wanted to ask Mitch, because he hasn't said much for a while. Mitch, you're a bit further north than AI, or where I come from, because I was born in London, obviously, to anyone who hears me. What's the situation like up where you are? And I know that where you live yourself is not that diverse, but you're very close to very diverse areas. So how are people feeling up there, Mitch?
Well, it's like my area. Back in the last election, I thought Reform were going to win it because we had a migrant hotel, and lo and behold, more people voted Tory than voted Reform, and the Labour Party won. So it's kind of, but there are times where I think, okay, realistically, my area voted for Brexit, for example, like 65%, I think it was. My area voted Brexit. So you think on paper, we're quite a right-wing area. It's kind of like we used to have coal mines, but they closed down back in the 80s and 90s. And, well, there's not really much going on around here. So we're kind of very similar to the north and sort of deindustrialised. And because it stayed white for so long, I think, because there's this phenomenon where when you get white people in diverse areas, they generally tend to be a lot more right-wing, whereas in a more homogenous area, especially of my generation, you'll just get an over-shit liberalisation. Like, you just have a scenario where, because the boomers all vote conservative, the younger generation, they respond by just becoming massive shit libs. So you see a lot of septum piercings and a lot of tattoos and all that kind of stuff. More than you always get usual, just to sort of overcompensate, I suppose. So that's...
And blue-haired women and this kind of stuff, I guess, Mitch.
And blokes.
Oh, God. Blue-haired blokes? See, I haven't seen that, for God's sake.
Yeah, I blame anime.
Oh, listen, I don't like green and blue and pink-haired women, let alone blokes. Jesus. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of dyeing hair, but if people are going to dye their hair, the only color I hate is like when people dye their hair, let's say green. I just think, that's ugly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that a woman who wants to make her hair more red, or a woman who wants to go blonde, good on her. Got no problem with any of that, because that's kind of traditional. You know, that's been going on. The ancient Romans used to do shit like that, so I don't care.
Yeah, it's like Anglo-Saxon women were known for doing that because blonde hair was sexually selected for back in those days.
Yes,
That's
yes. This is, of course, why you know, you get all that stuff like blondes have more fun and all this sort of stuff.
yeah, and it's like, and it's there's a fair
And
argument.
it is true, by the way, Mitch. Very few women don't look better blonde. Not many, got to say.
I mean, I think the only women I know of who don't look good blonde are largely East Asians. You know, but that's not.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Japanese girls. No, I'm not going to ask a Japanese girl to go blonde. That's bloody stupid. You know. Although quite a lot of Japanese girls make their hair more red. That's fairly common.
Usually, I've heard it's like they try to dye their look like kind of anime kind of colors.
No. I haven't seen that. But then listen. You're probably talking.
That's more my generation. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you're probably talking teenagers and early 20s. In terms of like traditional Japanese women, they will go quite light brown. They'll sometimes go quite red, but not blonde is very unusual for a Japanese because it's not a natural Japanese color at all. You know.
no, I mean, I'm trying to. I mean, I'd say Mediterranean women, but then again, I know like with the Mediterranean countries, especially in Italy, blondes are more sexually selected for because they're just so not massively rare as people might think, but it's just
No, if you go to Rome or anywhere north of Rome in Italy, you'll see loads of blondes. You know, I've been to Italy a couple of times, and there's plenty of blondes in Italy.
Yeah, and one thing that excuse me when people talk about the Odyssey casting is that with Troy they say, well, Helen of Troy should not have been cast as by a blonde woman, and I'm going like I've been to Greece, there are quite a few, it's not quite uncommon.
Yes,
you can find blonde-haired women.
Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can.
And yes, so
and in the Odyssey, in the
I think isn't Odysseus having fair hair as well?
Yes.
I don't know what the Greek standard of fair hair is, though, because I mean, it's like, for example,
This is true. It might be a very light brown, but Helen of Troy, who of course is actually the Queen of Sparta in the first book, not the Odyssey. She's described as having white flashing arms and golden hair.
White flashing arms. Because Odyssey mentions that a lot in the translation I was reading because of course ancient Greek women of the Bronze Age, they were expected to stay indoors and stay pale, whereas the men.
Yes, this is why if you go to Pompeii, for example. And I would recommend everyone to go there who can. It's brilliant. You go and look at and you go and look at some of the mosaics and the wall paintings and this kind of stuff. The women are always painted lighter than the men, and it's purely because men were expected to be farmers and warriors and be outdoors, whereas the women spent most of the time indoors, with the single exception that Spartan women spent more time outdoors because their blokes were often away fighting and they used to have to run the farm.
Also, I don't know if you see that screen share. Apparently there's a new Blade one apparently coming out on Amazon Prime, and they've got a person, Hunter Schafer, who is a transgender.
I know. Morgoth did a couple of posts on this on X and was scathing. And I haven't looked at this, but I suspect I'm going to totally agree with him.
I don't really know too much about this Hunter Schafer person. All I know is they're trans. That's all. I
Well,
know.
anyone who's trans, I've got no time for, basically.
And you got
like,
Michelle, Yeoh, who
what
I
a
will say
surprise.
I will say Tomorrow Never Dies. I liked him in that film, both of them. But I don't know. I have trouble remembering that she's still around. To be fair, nowadays.
Right. Kohu is saying Southern Italians look Jewish. No, they don't. No,
It's more.
no, not really.
It depends. I mean, I know the Sephardic.
They look dark Mediterranean, but they don't particularly look Jewish. I mean, I've been to Southern Italy.
Jews are Mediterranean, especially the Sephardic.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I'm not saying that, but well, I wouldn't say. I mean, Southern Italians look like Greeks, Southern Greeks. That's that part of the world, but they're not particularly Jewish.
It's like, yeah, I know. I remember in Euro 2020, like they tried to say maybe Southern Italians all look like Arabs. So it's all of a place where people say they're Southern Italians at times.
Well, to be fair, there was an Arab conquest of Sicily, for example. So there's going to be some of that there. But I mean, that's equally true of Israel as well. So I mean,
I know near Palermo, which about 20% of people there have like the same haplogroups as Normans, because basically the Norman lords, when they conquered the place, a lot of them were very sexually active in the area. So that's why.
Oh, sure, yeah, for sure.
It's why you get quite some tall Italians in the south. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get blue eyes in Italy and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But also, don't forget the Germans conquered northern and central Italy before that.
Yeah, and it's also
then Belisarius and the Byzantines took it back for quite a long time. So there's a lot of mixture in that part of the world, but they're Europeans for sure.
Nate Spurs is talking about like Islam conquering parts of like Spain, for example. It's like the thing about Spain is like Andalusians are genetically closer to Norway and to us than they are to the North Africans. So it's a bit of a false narrative people do when they claim that people of southern Spain are Arabs and all this, because they've all just stayed genetically. It was an elite thing. It wasn't population replacement or anything.
And also, a lot of the ordinary people had little choice but to convert for a while until the Reconquista,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's there is with there's been debates of like what percentage of the Islamic regions in Spain, like what was the demographic? Was it like a Christian majority? Was it half and half? One thing we do know is there was a very high Jewish number in Andalusia, in the Islamic territories. There was also a relatively high Christian population. The Islamic population, it depends who you ask. I mean, I think Peter Heather, he says that through like analysis of graves and what have you, the conversion would be you would have maybe like a Visigoth elite who would marry an Arab Berber, and you would have conversions that way. Though there is like it's like when the Spanish during the Reconquista would conquer territories, you would have like these cryptic. You'd have maybe publicly this Visigoth was converted to Islam, but then in his private life he would still be a Catholic or something. That and vice versa, where you still had Muslims practicing Islam, after the Reconquista.
Woodpit is saying that was 100% Ulster Scot. His great grandfather and had dark hair and eyes. Yeah, very common, mate. And Frankie HAR says, me and my father go rather tan in the sun. So do I, Frankie Har, but then I also have a Spanish great grandmother.
Yeah, I know. I know. For example, my eldest brother, like he used to have like really. He had like his hair was as black as coal, and it was really curly. Now, as far as we can tell, in terms of both, because we share the same father but not the same mother, both sides of the family 100% Northwest European, but he looks like an Arab because he tans really well in the sun, and also he's got like
Yeah,
and he's got like a dark curly beard.
yeah.
So
Well, I don't have curly anything, but I certainly tan very dark if I spend enough time in the sun, which I have because I lived in Africa for 15 years. So, but yeah, but you know, Europeans are a mixture of people, but they're basically Europeans, and I have no time for this meds are not European thing that some people on the right come out with. Not many, but a few do, and
yeah,
I just think it's nonsense, to be honest with you.
yeah, it's like because the thing is, I mean, if you read Agricola, like Antarctica, right? They both talk about how certain tribes in Wales look like the Spanish, and the
Yes,
Romans
yes.
hypothesizing about whether the Iberians moved over to
Well, I
Britain.
mean, you know, people used to talk about black Welshmen, dark Welshmen, and they didn't mean their skin color was black or dark. They just meant they had very dark hair and dark eyes, which is quite common amongst some Celts. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like I don't think it's that common in southern England, but because the Celts that moved around there were coming from northern Gaul or northern France, and the northern French are basically, they basically look the same to us as what we look like to the rest of the world in terms of the whole pale skin and all that. But yeah, it's like
Yes,
Karen,
just to say yeah to Murph Barron, some Cornish people, yes, you get very dark haired and dark eyed Cornish people. Again, like I said, it's quite common amongst some Celts, and
yeah,
those Cornish people tend to be very Celtic.
yeah. Also, you get
One
some
thing I've
Welsh,
noticed,
like Catherine Zeta-Jones. Yeah.
a lot of people from Kent, Essex, and Norfolk, I've noticed if you were thinking like blonde people in Britain, it is from the east. It was from your neck of the woods, Duke. And that's one thing I know a few people from Essex
Yeah,
because a few have moved down.
my younger
And
brother is a dirty blonde. Like when he was young, he had bright blonde hair, but as he got older, it got like darker. But my younger brother's a blonde guy, so yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and of course I'm in the West Country. Growing up in Cornwall, the thing that you would see quite often is you would have people like my side of the family who were slightly tanned, like as you mentioned, but then also you would see redheads. You would see people who would, redhead or auburn. You would see the
Also
sort of
very
more.
common in Scotland. AI, you get loads of
Yeah,
redheaded Scots.
Yeah, I know. I once
yeah,
met a redhead. I once met a Spanish redhead, and he came from Galicia, which Galicia gets its name from the same way gold does in Latin. From a Celt that way. And of course, Galicia, that's like northwestern Spain, where you get Coruña and where Sir John Moore had to flee from Spain, basically, that neck of the woods. So it's not on. So certain regions of Spain, it's not uncommon to find people that would look like us, because everyone thinks of Spanish as basically being like the dark-skinned Andalusians. It's like, well,
Yeah,
North
no,
Spanish.
they vary. No, you get blondes in Spain for sure. You do. I've been to Spain a few times, and you definitely get blondes. And for
It
anyone
depends
who
on
does,
it depends on which area of Spain, because I know
yeah, it does.
Catalonia.
It
Whereas
does.
if you go to the Canary Islands, I mean, Canary Islands are a bit of a weird one, because it's like
Yeah,
some people, because they're bred with the natives, and the natives are a bit closer to the Berbers of Morocco
for
genetically.
sure. But if you if you go to Spain, and anyone who has listened to my streams for any length of time will know that I like blondes. Yes, you can find blondes in Spain. So yeah, and I like blondes.
Interesting side note. We're talking about like the Greeks and the Hellenics. Now, maybe Mitch will be able to confirm this. Of course, in Anatolia, you did have a Celtic group that settled there, and it's
Sure.
quite interesting because some from Gaul. And one thing that is quite interesting is a lot of like some of the Eastern
Same thing.
Roman
Same thing in
depicted,
Northern Italy.
yeah,
AI.
there's
Northern
some
Italy was invaded by the
Galatian,
Gauls several times.
yeah.
So
There,
yeah, you're going to get blondes.
There's some depictions of like Eastern Roman military officers and as well like a few bishops on in paintings on contemporary paintings at the time and iconography where they are ginger. And
Well, AI, you will know because you sometimes use him as your avatar. You sometimes have Augustus as an avatar, don't you?
that's right. Yeah, and he was
and he
supposedly,
had very light blonde hair, apparently.
yeah, it was like a
Sorry, not
uh,
light. Sorry, light brown hair is what I'm trying to say. So
light
he
brown
was,
hair. Yeah,
yeah. He was not dark at all.
which ironically is my hair. It's fine. My hair switches between like a reddish to a brown. It's like it has different.
Oh, look, mate. I went before I went mostly grey. I had dark brown hair, but if I just washed it, you could see there was red in it. You know,
Yeah,
because
Galatians.
nearly all my family have some red in their hair. You know.
Yeah. For people wondering, that is the same. Paul's letter to the Galatians. It's the same Galatians, and
Yep, it is.
yeah, same group. Very interesting group. Very good warriors. They were very good warriors. They were very high plateau mountain people, and they were very good warriors in the Eastern Roman and the Roman world. And
Well, to be fair,
yeah.
like
Cleopatra had a bodyguard made up of those guys as well.
Yep, and
Yeah.
most ancient peoples, to some degree, were not bad warriors because you didn't last long if you weren't. So it was pretty violent back then.
I mean, I mean, there was some ancient people that. Okay, and this is a hot take in that regard, but
Here we go. Here we go.
As much as the lot of the Celts and the British Isles get uppity when it comes to the English, the Anglo-Saxons and stuff, it is worth noting that the Romano-British population were incredibly lazy when it came to their own self-defense against Irish raiders and Pict raiders. Isn't that true, Andrew? It's true that it's true.
It depended. It depended. To be fair,
okay, regardless.
I mean,
you
not
did have
not
these...
not before Claudius's invasion. That wasn't true before that, right?
No.
But yes, after when the Romans first fucked off, yes, absolutely. But that's because they'd had 350 years of the Romans protecting them, basically.
Yeah. Now to be fair, it was difficult for them to mount a response because they didn't have the means and capabilities. But at the same time, there is an element of they just became very reliant on foreign mercenaries.
They
to
became
the point
reliant on the legions and the legionary auxiliaries to defend them. They did. Can I just say the wood pit in the chat? the only reason some Abos have blondish and red hair is because they're not full-blood Abos. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of like it's
Yeah,
kind of funny.
and there are very few full-blood Abos these days.
Yeah, it's funny, like how in Mexico, for example, you get like these blonde-haired Mexicans who talk about how they're Aztecs. I mean, well, you get these Mexicans who are like nearly 100% native, like who will say they're conquistadors. Like it's similar to that.
Yeah, exactly, Mitch. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yes, the Romanized Brits got lazy. Yes, they did. But there again,
and then
they invited the Anglo-Saxons to come across and defend them, and the Anglo-Saxons, not being idiots, thought, you know what? Well, yeah, we can defend you, but you know what? We can also take some of this land, and they did.
Yeah, when you read some of the Celtic poems of that period, it's kind of like the problem is lack of unity. Like, there weren't lack of warriors; it was just the fact there was as many kings as there were warriors. So no one, with the exception of Ambrosius, Aurelianus.
Too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Yes,
and the thing is, it was unique because the Romano Brits who resided in the southeast around Londinium and in the southeast, they were probably the most decadent, and because that's where a lot of the wealth was at the time as well in Roman Britain. And yeah, you had in like Dumnomia and in what's now Wales, and what's Sileria and Gwynedd and places like that. They were capable of actually defending themselves against Irish raiders and then later the Angles and the Saxons, well, to a point anyway.
Yes.
But I mean, the problem was the Romano Brits, because they had largely abandoned their roots, they were seen as by their contemporaries as somewhat outsiders or foreign, even though they were, the same. But also they
fought pretty hard against the Romans. AI, to be fair.
Well,
when Caesar invaded twice, and eventually when Claudius invaded permanently, it took the Romans like 60 or 70 years to even get beyond the Midlands in Britain. It wasn't easy, and there's a reason why Britain ended up with, like, at one stage we had 4 legions based in Britain and an equal number of auxiliaries. So that's like 40,000 Roman soldiers, which was a lot because the Romans only had about 50,000 soldiers for the whole empire.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, their ancestors, I mean, you talk about 400 years before, though, their descendants 400 years later.
Sure. Absolutely.
Reaped. I mean, for example, the Iceni, which is probably the most famous of pre-Roman tribes. Everyone knows who they are.
Boudicca's lot,
Boudicca's, everyone knows who they are. Now, of course, the Iceni, largely 400 years later, they would have been, because of where the tribe was located, they would be part of or any remnants of the tribe would have been Romanized. They would have had Roman names by the end of it, the descendants. They probably would have also been Christian in the late Empire anyway.
And lost their warrior caste.
They probably...
And also back in East Anglia, Ipswich is the oldest city in England, continuously inhabited, because East Anglia was the first area to be taken over, and there's strong evidence, as Survivor Drive would say, that there's ethnic cleansing that went there because basically genetically the area got completely replaced genetically between the old Celts of Iron Age versus Anglo-Saxons who come in, to a point where in East Anglia is closer genetically to the Dutch and the Northern Germans than he would be.
Look at the county names, Mitch. And I know you know this, by the way, Mitch. This is for the benefit of people listening to this. Like Sussex is the Southern Saxons. Yeah, the Wessex is the West Saxons. Middlesex is the Middle Saxons. This was the Saxon invasion, and you know, I'm a very proud Anglo-Saxon. So, but you know, they were invited here by the Romano-British to defend them initially.
Don't tell our globalist overlords, because if they find out, they'll want to rename the places something Stan, no less.
Well, yeah, but that wouldn't be because of the people. I mean, look, this is my point. The Maori arrived in New Zealand. Even the most optimistic efforts of the most shit-lived people in the entire world, it was the 1400s, I think, that the Maori arrived in New Zealand. 1400s. So think about the time of the Battle of Agincourt. Okay, the Anglo-Saxons arrived in England in the 400s, so 1,000 years before that, and yet the Maori are indigenous to New Zealand, and no one will say that the Anglo-Saxons are indigenous to England, even though we've been here 1,000 years longer than the Maori.
Yeah.
Also
on a side note, because we on a side note, Mercian. Now, hello, Mercian. I'm assuming you reside and you're from what would have been the old Mercian kingdom.
Of course, yes. I'm not too far away from the Mercian capital. Let's put it that way.
Is that was Lichfield?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was Tamworth, but yeah.
But
yeah, Tamworth was the old capital.
Lichfield
used to be Archbishop Worth.
Guys, don't dox yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Now, of course.
I don't live. I don't live in either one of those places. I'll just point that out.
Okay. Sorry. I'll avoid doxing. I'll promise I'll avoid doxing people. But my point was, now, I think this is fair to say, as much as because I'm from obviously the Wessex, what would be the Wessex territory, and Wessex obviously very important. Ultimately was the last one standing, and united the Anglo-Saxons into one kingdom.
The last kingdom.
It was the last kingdom.
The one that managed to defeat the Vikings.
Yeah, and it was a confederation of Viking, chieftain kings, what have you. Yeah, it was an amazing victory. But going to the formative years of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms,
and they took Anglo-Saxon warriors came from Sussex. They came from places to the north. Alfred didn't just have his own guys in Wessex. He got guys from everywhere.
There were remnants from Western Mercia.
Yeah,
so this would be like Shropshire and further up into Cheshire.
I know guys from Sussex were marched to defend Alfred.
Yeah, I mean, also it's also worth noting that during this time before the march, Ubba of Uda of Devon marched out and defeated their own from Exeter, a separate Viking army,
and
the men from Devon.
We were the only people to do it, nobody else in Europe, except the guys from Wessex and the English, the Anglo-Saxons. We were the only guys to defeat the Norse invaders, the only ones. Everybody else lost. That's why northern France became Norman. And of course, the Normans were the Northmen. Large parts of Russia taken over by the Norse, by the Rus. The only people who won were the Anglo-Saxon English.
Yeah, and but the thing is, before all that, Mercia was the most considered, particularly during Charlemagne's time, I mean, with Northumbria, but Mercia was the most powerful kingdom in the Anglo-Saxon heptarchy, you could say. It was definitely one of the largest, one of the most important, and also they were, of course, thanks to Mercia, we actually push the Celts, the Welsh, back into roughly the modern boundary today, beyond Offa's Dyke, and we have to thank the Mercians a lot, because of course without them, we'd have to put up with more of those taffy buggers, than we have to today. Joking. We love the Welsh here. We love the Welsh.
Where's the place that it's legal to kill a Welshman with a crossbow? Is that still on the
Herefordshire?
Yeah, Herefordshire. There's still there's still a bylaw on the book that if a Welsh group like raiders are approaching overnight, you can organise a quick. You can kill them in a bylaw. Obviously, a bylaw does not apply to actual law. So for the purpose of YouTube, no, you can't kill a Welshman if he enters your town.
What about new Welsh choir boys?
Yeah, definitely not.
All right, guys. Whoa. One of my best mates ever, right, was an electrician, son of a Welsh miner, Welsh himself. Everyone called him Taffy. One of the nicest men I've ever met in my life, and he was an electrician in a coal mine in northern Natal. Great bloke, really nice. Had a very cute girlfriend, several very cute dogs, because his girlfriend worked at the dog rescue place and kept bringing a new dog home. And Taffy would just say, yeah, all right, no worries. 900cc motorbike, one of the best men I've ever met in my life, and he was a Welsh. So you're not going to get me slagging off the Welsh, I tell you now.
I wasn't talking about the Welsh. You have to read in between the lines of what I was saying.
Yeah, well, let's just say, I mean, we're talking about certain certain Mediterranean style phenotypes you can get in Wales. I mean, but
yes. Don't you think Tom Jones looks very dark for a Welshman?
Yeah, all the coverage.
We were talking about this, Mercy, before you joined us, and many Celts are pretty dark. They are.
This actually does, in the Victorian period, and I was talking to Aaron Hook about this once. There was this concept of what was called British Israelism, like British Israel or Israelites, where there was this belief
fuck all to do with Welshmen, but okay.
Hold on. Before it's not what you think it is, guys. It's not what you think it is. Okay. But Victorian times, there was a belief that, particularly among the Celts, because of the tannedness of nature of it, that they were one of the lost tribes of Israel, like in the ancient biblical.
Sake.
To be fair, Duke, there were people in England who used to be weird to call the Trojans back in the Middle Ages. So I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely right, and I get that. But also, I got to say, my dad was evacuated 3 times in World War II from London, because when World War II broke out, he was 6. Okay, and the first time they sent him to Brighton. And he had a great time, because the daughter used to go out with this Royal Navy sailor, and they would take him to the beach and buy him ice cream and stuff. Then he got sent to Bracknell, where the woman was only doing it to make money and didn't feed my dad anything except fucking dumplings. And he got rickets, and his mum took him home. And then he got sent to North Wales. And my dad had a great time there. The farm laborer, the head farm laborer on the farm, was a World War One soldier who was too old to fight in World War Two. He used to take my dad around places, and he got rabbit stew. And the only thing he didn't like is he had to go to Welsh chapel on Sunday, and of course he couldn't understand a word of it because it was all in Welsh. But
Didn't he learn it?
sorry.
Didn't he take the time to learn it while he was in Wales for a time?
No, he was only there a few months, mate.
But he was there for ages.
No. He, like I said, he went to Brighton first, then he went to Bracknell, and I can't remember why he had to leave Brighton, but there was a reason. I don't know what it was. In Bracknell, he got mistreated, and then he got sent to North Wales. And my dad loved it in North Wales because in the harvest season, the kids got time off school to help with the harvest. And my dad liked the horses and all the rest of it because they were still using the horses back then. And like I said, this old World War One Welsh soldier was lovely to him. And his family that he was lodged with, who was a farming family, they fed him really well. Lots of rabbit stew and all this kind of shit. And the only thing my dad didn't like was, like, on Sundays, he had to spend about 2 or 3 hours in a Welsh chapel listening to people gobbling away in Welsh, which my dad had no idea what that was. But he loved his time in Wales and thought the people were beautiful. So, that's, and I've been to Wales. I like Wales. I like Welsh people. They're British. That's what I think.
Yeah, but the only thing I'll say about Northern Wales is, like, when you get to, like, certain elevations in the valleys, I mean, you start to feel queasy, especially if you're in a car. Like, you start to feel a bit.
I never found that, but I like mountains and hills. So, like, I like the Highlands of Scotland.
Like, if I was walking it, it wouldn't be too much of a problem. It's the fact I was going in a car. That was what was making my head queasy. Like, my head was being ripped off and sewn back on. Like that. That's what.
Oh, okay.
That's probably what it was. That and bloody sheep kept walking onto the road, so you have to think when they stop. Otherwise, you end up running over a sheep.
That's all right. I've never had an issue stopping for sheep or ponies or cows or even, like, antelope and stuff in Africa. That doesn't ever worry me.
I think one problem we've got increasingly over my neck of woods. So we've got the deer up Cannock Chase, and cool. you have to drive. There's certain speeding limits you have to have when you're driving for a chase because you don't want to run them over.
Oh yeah, you have to take care at night, especially. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and some of the diversity we're getting, especially the Indian drivers, they don't give a shit. So yeah, so there's been a couple of cases of deer getting run over. And
I can believe it, mate. Yeah, I can believe that. But these people are barbarians, so that's why they shouldn't be in Britain, really.
I don't really get why they drive that stupidly anyway, because, a lot of these guys are working for taxi companies, and if their car gets massively dented by running over deer, I mean, they're out of work for however long. So it's stupid of them.
Always Indian drivers as well. They're the worst drivers on the road by far. I suppose import the third world, get the third world sort of thing. You only have to watch, like, any kind of program where they show cars in India. I think there was even like, like that Indian comedian from Goodness Gracious Me. He was on Top Gear once, and he told a story about. No, it was Jeremy Clarkson. He was telling that comedian. He was saying, because he was going from Nepal into India, and he goes, you'll just know when you're in India. And I was, what do you mean? You'll just know when you're in India. There'll just be a sign that you're in India. And apparently, he crossed the border from Nepal into India just to watch a truck with 2 kids hanging off the front, one pouring in water in the radiator at the top, and one holding a bucket underneath the leaking radiator. And he went, that's how I know I'm in India.
Mercy, and I'll tell you once, right, when I lived in northern Natal in South Africa, there's a fairly big mountain there called Impati. And some Indian dude and his wife were driving down it like, early hours of the morning or very late at night. And they hit a cow as they came round a bend. Like most of us knew there were cows on this road. And so as you went round a bend, you slowed down, But this was an Indian dude and he didn't. And I was talking to the cop who went to the accident, and he said you could not tell because the cow went through the windscreen. And the cop said you couldn't tell where the cow began or the Indian man or his wife ended. It was just like a mess of flesh, basically. But yeah, not good drivers, and not very sensible people on the whole.
Yeah, I think it's their outlook on life. From the same interview, there was a saying that Indian drivers have with the Indian mythology. I don't know if this applies to Hindus.
Well, they think if you blow your horn a lot, you'll be all right.
Well, I think it's their outlook. It's sort of like they feel like they'll be protected by their god in plurals, and if
well,
they
also think cows are sacred. So
that they also yeah.
You think you'd slow down if there were cows around, but no, they don't.
Yeah, and also I believe that copus is a good ingredient to have for like certain medicines as well.
Yes, indeed.
But it does alarm me how far the diversity is. Like this, you can go to some of the whitest areas in the country, and there's still diversity. You always see diversity everywhere.
Lake District. You can't even go for a hike there without seeing Indians just and shittifying a damn place.
There's nowhere in this country where there's you. I mean, I noticed this a few years ago because like I used to go to some random places in Wales, and like when I mean random places, like places you'd have to drive for several hours.
Mercian, have you been to Bracken? Have you been to Bracken?
Probably.
Which is where the South Wales Borderers Museum is. The guys from the movie Zulu and all that stuff. I went there in the very late 1990s, would have been, I don't know, 97 or something like that. I was home in England for a bit. And I went there and I didn't see a black person at all or a brown person on that whole trip.
Well, I mean, like this was a few years ago, but like I can't remember where it was in Wales. But imagine a trip where you're traveling for hours through single track lanes, and you end up in where I wanted to be in like a hamlet, where they've got like a little shop and like 5 houses.
Sure.
And there was still diversity. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I had to drive 2 hours to get here. From a motorway, that is. It took longer than that. Like 2 hours through like single track roads to get to this hamlet, and there's still what? How have you got here?
Well, it's like I went to visit Chard's grave in the late 90s. Lieutenant Chard from North Drift, and this is in Shire Tories part of the world. It's a little village in Somerset. And no diversity whatsoever, like nothing, just white British people, basically.
I mean, you live in the southwest. That's fairly white, but do you get that same feeling at the moment?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. It's like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It just amazes me. Honestly, you think you can sort of like do the American thing of white flight. There's no way.
In Britain, it's too small, mate. Britain's too small.
It's just in. I've just come from a town in Shropshire. I won't tell you which one, in case I dox myself, in case someone was there. But I've just come from a town in Shropshire, and the amount of diversity, and I'm not talking like Shrewsbury itself. I mean
Yeah,
like
yeah.
town. And if you know Shropshire, it's like it's so hard to get about there.
Well, Nate Spurs 2.0 says, I live in Bath and they're taking over here now. Listen, I've been to Bath many times, Nate Spur, and I used to really like Bath. And I don't think I've ever seen more than one brown person in the whole bloody town.
I haven't been
ever.
I haven't been to. Oh, I'll say the southern like the Bath. I still call it Bath. It's the
Bath. Bath is what I'm talking
Bath.
about. Yeah.
Well, I did live near Glastonbury for a spell, so I've been to Bath a few times,
Wow.
and I can well believe that it's happened in the last 5 years, because like that was a little haven, that was.
Yeah, it was just an 18th century part of Britain, I love the old terraces from the Regency era and the Minster, and yeah, shit, that makes me sad, to be honest.
Have we lost both Mitch and I now?
I don't know what's happened to AI. He hasn't sent me a message. Mitch has gone, but he sent me a message in private chat. But AI hasn't, so AI may come back, I hope. But yeah, I'm so sad to hear about Bath, because I used to love that town. I used to like the Roman baths and all that,
Yeah. Honestly, Duke, it would depress you, because like I don't know if you come visiting and where you would head or anything, but like if you think you can find a little hamlet in the middle of nowhere and not be presented with diversity, get that thought out of your head. I don't know whether there's places in Scotland where you can escape it, but not in
Listen,
England and Wales.
I used to live in Berkshire, right? Between Reading and Oxford, and there were little villages there with like one pub, and my local was like a form. It was started life as a Henry VIII hunting lodge with a thatch roof and Tudor gables and all this kind of shit. And that was my local. And you never saw a black or brown person in that place ever.
I think
I'd go to I'd go to Henley on Thames, which was probably 20 minutes drive. 20 minutes drive.
Thames.
Yeah, 20 minutes drive from me. You wouldn't see black and brown people there. Hardly ever.
I think what I'm talking about, that was kind of true until the Boris wave.
And Marlow is another place I used to go all the time because one of my friends lived there. Really nice. No black or brown people. I mean, all right, you only had to go a bit up the road to Slough or Reading, and you could find that shit, but not in any of the places I'd actually go, like for pleasure. You know what I mean?
I mean, this is the thing. Is I think Britain was there were still some escapes in Britain, but I think the Boris wave has changed a lot. I don't think there's any escape since the Boris wave. Boris wave. I don't know what's worse, what Tony Blair did, or what this Boris wave.
Remigration, mate. Remigration is the answer.
Yes.
It's got to be. I'm sorry. Remigration is the answer. Like they have to go.
Yeah.
Vast majority of. I don't say that Britain has to be totally white.
It
But
no,
it
no,
has to
it
be-
doesn't. It doesn't
But
need
it,
to.
but it,
But
but it has to be 95% white.
yeah,
That's what
I've
it
heard
has
that.
to
I've heard
be.
that figure. Yeah, it should never be
Yeah.
any lower than 95%.
It should be 95% Anglo-Celtic white people.
Yeah, that's an important distinction, and I concur. Because then that 5% will become assimilated.
Yeah, because 5% we can assimilate, but anything higher than that, you can't. You just cannot.
Yeah, because there are too many enclaves for them to cling on to their
Yeah,
roots.
they'll form their little ghettos or colonies or whatever you want to call them, and destroy Birmingham or London or wherever, Rotherham.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's really sad to see what's happened to our big cities. I mean, you could argue that the big cities have been suffering since the 60s or 70s. To be honest,
But mate, go and look at these big towns and cities. Go and look at what you can see it, or you can find it on YouTube or on X, on Twitter. Go and look it up. Look at these places in the 70s. They did not look like they look now. And I'm not just talking about the sheer number of immigrants in these places. I'm talking about the rubbish everywhere, the almost abandoned buildings, the desolation. Someone saying in the chat, even the 90s, yeah, to some degree, but certainly go look at the 70s.
I grew up in the 90s, and I don't know what year I really started to notice the issues, but I'll go as far as to say early 2010s. Like, you really started to see it.
Yes.
I think this whole multicultural thing, it was holding up to the 90s and noughties. It was holding up to a degree, and then I think it snapped in the 2010s. And
Well, yeah, but it wasn't really holding up.
It seemed to be.
Mate, I was born, right? My family, when I was born in the mid-60s, lived in Peckham, right? And Peckham at that stage was probably, I don't know, 90 or 95% white. Yeah.
Agreed.
Now it is 99% black or brown. Right?
Yeah, it's a Jamaican colony, Peckham, isn't it?
Yeah. They spread from Brixton, and even when I was a young teenager, Brixton was mostly West Indian, because that's what they do. They create ghettos. But also, I then lived most of my older teenage life in Bermondsey. And Bermondsey was 90 or 95% white. And I made the mistake of going back there in the 2010s. And I think I saw about 3 white people.
Doesn't surprise me.
And that is despite the fact that all the old warehouses and dockyards and all that along the River Thames there, right? They've all been gentrified. And the people who live in those places, you can't live in one of those places unless you got at least £500,000, probably £1 million now. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've all been totally gentrified. And when I lived there, it was a completely working class area, Like my old man worked 300 yards down the road on a wharf where he got paid £5 for unloading a Thames barge with a shovel, right? Full of split peas or lentils or pearl barley. But now all of those things have been turned into like really posh, really expensive flats, apartments. And yeah, but I hardly saw a white person because, of course, the rich guys who live there, they don't walk anywhere anyway. They just get in their car and fuck off.
Well, I mean, like I had this debate with someone about whether we should abandon the cities. I think Radley talks about how Christians sort of spread the faith in cities and held fast because they had a strong community. And my argument is the English people are detached from each other, unfortunately. And I mean specifically, how do I put this? Well, I saw a Richard IV video the other day where he says we must love all English people, including the
Yes.
the fifth column English people, the leftists, the globalists that hate us. We
Nah.
must love them.
No.
Well, that's what Richard IV said. I kind of see where it's coming from because he sort of like his point was they're a bit misguided. Their minds are poisoned by this ideology.
No, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. I will say where there is a problem in Britain, I think real British, by which I mean Anglo-Celtic white people, there is a division between the Southerners, the Midlanders, and the Northerners. And also between the Welsh and the Scots.
It's so nice you to add the Midlanders in there.
You know, I put the Midlanders in there deliberately for you, mate.
Yes.
Because I think you guys are probably more akin to the Northerners in some respects. But I don't know that because I have never lived in the Midlands. But I would just say I think all true Anglo-Celtic, English, and British people need to regard each other as brothers, and that is the division I fear in Britain at the moment from our point of view.
I say unfortunately too individualistic, but I think that's just our way. But
you know, when AI was here, we were talking about Alfred the Great and the Anglo-Saxons and beating the Norse, the Viking invaders. As I said, there were Mercians who came down from the north. There were people from what is now West Sussex who marched up from the south, and they all went to Alfred's aid. And if we're going to win, we have to get something like that back. We do. Like all English people, and actually I think all British people, I think you've got to include the Welsh and the Scots and the Northern Irish, the Ulster guys. You've got to include all of these people together, and we have to stand together as brothers if we're going to win. We have to.
I think we need a generation that is forged in it to get a great man of history, and I don't see that coming from the millennials or Zoomers at the moment.
I don't know, mate. Well, we need it sooner rather than later.
I agree with that, but I don't see the millennials or Zoomers producing one of the great men of history. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
It's been said before, though, Mercian, and it has happened. You know.
I think a great man of history has to be forged in. You know the saying.
What are we in if it's not disaster at the moment?
I know, but I mean, we still live in relative comfort. Although we can spot the signs of decline. The average
it's way more than the signs of decline, Mercian. Come on.
I don't know. I know. What I mean from a normist point of view, and I'm talking like, you know, people who haven't, you just buy the BBC line on things, and there are a lot of them, a lot more than we care to admit. they don't see the decline yet for whatever reason.
Mercian, if you had a child, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Say you had a 7-year-old little boy. Would you let him go to the park on his own?
No.
Yeah, look, I'm not even saying a 7-year-old little girl, 7-year-old little boy. Would you let him go to the park
Do you know
on
what?
his
I
own?
think that depends entirely where I'll be living at the time.
Oh, okay. Where you're living now, just as an example. And assume.
It's not
All
the
right,
same.
I've got to be accurate here. Assume the park is behind your house,
Yeah.
maybe 600 yards away, but you can't see it.
Hmm.
Would you let him go to the park on his own as a 7-year-old?
You know, I've never really thought about it. If it was, I mean, like, it'd be very unusual for me to have a 7-year-old son when I was a child myself. But if it was the 90s, not a problem. Today,
Yeah. I'm not
sure.
talking about. I'm talking about now, today, 2026. Say you're magically married and you've got a 7-year-old son, and there's a park 600 yards behind you, but when he's in that park, you can't see him from your house. Would you let him go on his own, or would you only let him go there if you or your wife were with him?
I don't think I would.
Well, let me tell you this, Mercy. When I was that age, I lived right next to Peckham Rye Park, which is about 250 acres of park. And my dad had no problem letting me wander around that place as a 7-year-old. But that was like 1971, you understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all, it's not in the middle of London. It's like halfway out. And it's one of the biggest parks in London. And my dad had no problem letting me wander around there as a 7-year-old. Did he say to me, if some noncy bloke comes up and says, "Oh, would you like to come in my car for a bag of sweets?" Don't do it. Yes, he did. But that's all he did. Yeah?
Yeah.
Like he did give me some warnings. My dad was not an idiot man. But he was happy for me to go and play in that park. And also I'd take my younger brother, who was 5. He wasn't allowed to go on his own, but he could go with me.
So I mean, I used to go play outside all the time as a child.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's not the 20th century anymore. It's the 21st century. And
Yes. And what do you think makes it worse, mate? Do you think that the British Anglo-Celtic people have got worse? Because I don't, actually. I think it's just because there are so many fucking immigrants in the country, and you can't trust any of them, really.
I mean, that's true. That's true.
This is the truth of it, mate. It is. This is why 11-year-old little English girls, hundreds of thousands of them, have been the victims of the child rape gangs that our shit libs call grooming gangs.
Yeah. We should specify rape gangs.
They're child rape gangs, actually. Fucking 11-year-olds, for God's sake. If I saw someone trying to hurt an 11-year-old, I'd fucking kill them, to be honest.
Wait, I mean, what's worse, what the immigrants done, or our institutions covering up and aiding and abetting on that?
Well, I think they're equally bad, of course. But yeah, I'm going to say something YouTube won't let me say. So, things are getting worse. They're getting worse mainly because of mass failboard immigration. if you don't want Britain to be a third world country, you have to stop mass third world immigration. And I think you have to reverse it, to be honest. I really do.
No. I doubt anyone on the panel tonight, or indeed anyone watching, would disagree with that. In fact, if there's anyone watching that disagrees with that, I would like to know.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be in Britain.
No.
But yeah, anyway, guys, I think we're pretty much done. Mercian, do you want to plug your channel, mate?
Yeah. If you, I mean, there's some kind of, one day when the storms are a lot calmer.
I did invite Farium. By the way. He just didn't turn up.
Well, I mean, people. I mean, like I wasn't able to get here until just gone 11, so you know.
Maybe he's got a girlfriend. You never know.
You never know. Maybe he wants to bring an English baby into the world.
You never know, mate.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. But there we go.
So yeah, If you want to subscribe to Mercian, I forget there is like a little number, but you should be able to find me. I'll put
yeah,
if
you put Mercian in the chat, you come up. So, sorry, in the search bar. I mean, all right. We are going to do a history stream this week, guys. The last 2 weeks we missed, and it was entirely my fault. But next week, on Wednesday, we're going to do Sir Francis Drake and his round the world voyage, and that's going to be with AI. I'm looking forward to that. It will be interesting. And the week after that, we're going to do the history of hope, not hate. And I'm doing it without them, but I'm going to invite Morgoth to that one, because he might be interested to join us on that one. But yeah, we're going to do the history of hope, not hate, which I think people will find interesting. So yeah, go well, guys. Thank you for joining us, and please, you can support the channel for a whole $5 a month on Subscribestar, and you get 2 or even sometimes 3 streams a week for that. So
now,
it's worth probably worth $5.
When you say $5, is that US or Australian?
It's US, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's about $7 Australian. But
I was about to say, if it was $5 Australian, it's sort of like great, even more of a bargain.
Yeah. I think it's $5 US, but it isn't that much anyway. People used to send me $50 super chats, and that was great, but I can't do those anymore because sadly the company that did it went out of business. So the only way I've got of funding my channel at the moment is Subscribestar, and I've only got 6 subscribers. If I could get 36, that would pretty much cover things. But anyway, whatever. So yeah, it'd be nice if you were to support us, gents, but also give us a like and a thumbs up. That always helps. Thank you to my guests, Adaman, AI, Mitch, and Mercian, and we'll see you on Wednesday for Sir Francis Drake's circumnavigation of the world, and we'll see you next week for another one of the Splendid Isolation streams. Go all, people.
Oh, it's just me. Well, I'll stay here because Iron Duke needs to close the stream. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going on and on and on. Oh dear me. I might leave the stream and see if it Yeah. I genuinely think Iron Duke needs to close the stream. I think me, get out. I could try leaving and see what happens. I do have the stream open. Let's see what happens. Right, bye everyone. I'm going to leave. See what happens.